Love doesn't see rank, it sees the heart. That's what Phoebe's mother whispered to her every night before she died. But when you're born the daughter of an Omega in a world ruled by alphas, you learn that the heart means nothing when you're considered less than dirt. Phoebe would learn this truth in the cruelest way possible in the chambers of a Lycan Prince who pretended to sleep, testing her loyalty while she believed no one was watching. Chapter 1. The Omega's Daughter. The Silvercrest pack had rules. Unspoken, ancient, carved into the hierarchy like claw marks on stone. Alphas ruled. Betas served. And Omegas? Omegas existed in the shadows, doing the work no one else wanted to acknowledge. Phoebe had learned this before she could even shift. She was 17 now, her mother 6 months in the ground, and every day felt like drowning in a river with stones tied to her ankles. The pack house loomed before her in the pre-dawn darkness, a massive structure of gray stone and timber, with windows that glowed like predatory eyes. Inside, the elite lived. The alphas, the warriors, the favored, and then there was her. Move faster, Omega filth. The voice belonged to Virgie, the head housekeeper, a beta woman whose cruelty was legendary among the lower ranks. She stood at the servants' entrance, arms crossed, her face twisted in perpetual disdain. Her daughter, Edwina, stood beside her, smirking with the casual cruelty of someone who'd never known hardship. Phoebe kept her eyes down. Yes, ma'am. The Lycan Prince arrives today, Virgie continued, her voice sharp enough to cut. The Alpha has assigned you to his chambers. You'll clean, serve, and stay invisible. Do you understand? One mistake, and you'll be thrown to the rogues. Phoebe's heart clenched. The Lycan Prince. She'd heard whispers everyone had. Vince, son of the Lycan King, was visiting Silvercrest to negotiate an alliance. He was powerful beyond measure, ruthless in battle, and according to rumor, cold as winter frost. And they were putting her in his chambers. I understand, Phoebe whispered. Edwina laughed, a sound like breaking glass. I almost feel sorry for her. Almost. The prince will probably have her whipped for breathing too loud. Enough, Edwina, Virgie snapped, though her eyes gleamed with amusement. Get inside, Omega. The prince arrives at noon. His chambers must be perfect. Phoebe slipped past them, into the warmth of the pack house. The contrast always struck her outside. She was nothing. Inside, surrounded by marble floors and silk tapestries, she was a ghost haunting someone else's dream. The servants' corridors were narrow and dim, lit by oil lamps that cast dancing shadows. She moved through them with practiced silence, carrying her bucket and rags, her worn dress barely protecting her from the morning chill. The prince's chambers were in the east wing, reserved for the most important guests. Phoebe had never been there before. As she climbed the stairs, her hands trembled. Don't mess this up. Don't give them a reason. The door was carved oak, inlaid with silver symbols she couldn't read. She knocked once, no answer. Carefully, she pushed it open. The room took her breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the forest, where morning mist clung to the trees like ghosts. The bed was enormous, draped in furs and silk the color of midnight. Weapons lined one wall, swords, daggers, a bow that looked like it could pierce mountains. Everything smelled of pine and something else. Something wild and dangerous that made her wolf stir uneasily. A Lycan, her wolf whispered. Stronger than any alpha. Be careful. Phoebe set to work. She scrubbed floors that were already clean, dusted furniture that held no dust, arranged and rearranged until everything was perfect. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, and then she heard its footsteps in the corridor. Heavy, measured, powerful. She froze, rag in hand. As the door opened, he filled the doorway like a storm about to break. Vince was tall, taller than any wolf she'd ever seen. His hair was dark, almost black, falling to his shoulders in waves that seemed to absorb light. His eyes were gold, true gold, not the amber of regular wolves. They swept the room with predatory precision before landing on her. Phoebe dropped into a bow, so deep her forehead nearly touched the floor. Your Highness, welcome to Silvercrest. Silence. It stretched so long she thought she'd done something wrong. Stand, he said finally. His voice was deep, textured with something that made her bones vibrate. She obeyed, keeping her eyes lowered. Protocol. Always protocol. What's your name? He asked. Phoebe, Your Highness. She hesitated. Daughter of Harriet, Omega of Silvercrest. She saw his expression shift, something flickered across those gold eyes. Surprise? Disgust? She couldn't tell. An Omega, he repeated slowly. They assigned an Omega to serve me. Her chest tightened. This was it. He'd demand someone else, someone worthy, and she'd be punished for the insult of her presence. But he didn't. You'll do, he said simply, and turned away. I require nothing tonight. You're dismissed. Phoebe bowed again and fled. The next morning, she returned at dawn. The door was unlocked. She'd learned that he never locked it, as if daring someone to enter. The prince was asleep, or appeared to be, sprawled across the massive bed with one arm flung over his eyes. Phoebe moved like a shadow. She'd learned to be silent in a world that punished Omegas for existing too loudly. She started with the fireplace, cleaning out yesterday's ashes. Then the windows, the floor. A sound, soft, pained. She turned. The prince was still sleeping, but his face had twisted. His breath came in short gasps. A nightmare. Not your business, her survival instincts screamed. Finish and leave. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the memory of her mother, who used to soothe Phoebe's nightmares with gentle hands and soft songs. Maybe it was the loneliness she saw in those twisted features, a loneliness she recognized because she wore it herself. Slowly, carefully, she approached the bed. Your Highness, she whispered, barely audible. It's just a dream. You're safe. He didn't wake. The nightmare deepened, his hands clenched into fists, and a low growl rumbled from his chest. Without thinking, Phoebe reached out and touched his hand. Just a brush of her fingers. A moment of contact. You're safe, she repeated, softer now. Whatever you're fighting, it can't reach you here. His breathing slowed. The tension in his face eased. The growl faded into silence. And then he was calm. Still sleeping, but peaceful. Phoebe pulled her hand back as if burned. What had she done? If he woke, if he knew she'd touched him, an Omega touching a Lycan Prince, she'd be killed. She finished her work in record time and vanished. It became a pattern. Every morning, she arrived at dawn. Every morning, he appeared to be sleeping. And every morning, without fail, the nightmares came. She began to recognize the signs, the way his jaw clenched, the rapid movement behind his closed eyes, the small sounds of distress that no one else would hear. And every morning, she did the unthinkable. She spoke to him. Gentle words, meaningless comfort. Sometimes, she touched his hand, just for a moment. Just long enough to anchor him. He never woke. Never acknowledged her presence. But the nightmares always stopped. On the 5th morning, something changed. She was dusting the bookshelf when she heard it, a voice, rough with sleep. Why? She spun around. The prince was sitting up in bed, those gold eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her wolf whimper. Your Highness, words died in her throat. Why do you do it? He asked. His voice was quieter now, almost gentle. Every morning, you think I'm asleep, and you comfort me. Why? He knows. Terror flooded her veins. He's been awake. He's been testing you. I'm sorry, she choked out. I'm so sorry. I never meant to. I know I had no right to touch you. I just... Answer the question. She was shaking now, tears burning behind her eyes. Because you were suffering. And I know what suffering feels like. I couldn't just walk away. The silence was crushing. Then Vince did something that shattered her world. He smiled. Not a cruel smile, not mocking, genuine, with a warmth that transformed his entire face. You're the first person in 10 years, he said softly, who's treated me like I'm more than a weapon or a throne. The first person who's shown me kindness without wanting something in return. A single tear traced down his cheek, gold, like his eyes, catching the morning light. An Omega, he whispered, wonder in his voice. An Omega daughter taught a Lycan Prince what compassion feels like. Phoebe's world tilted. This couldn't be real. Princes didn't cry. Lycans didn't show weakness. And they certainly didn't look at Omegas like they were miracles. What's your name? He asked, though he already knew. Your full name. Phoebe Cohen, she whispered. Phoebe, he repeated, tasting the name. From this day forward, you're under my protection. No one touches you. No one harms you. You're mine to protect. The door slammed open. Virgie stood there, Edwina behind her, both faces twisted with rage. Your Highness. Virgie's voice was venomous. This Omega has been bothering you. I'll have her whipped immediately for. You'll do nothing, Vince said, his voice dropping to a growl that made the windows rattle. He rose from the bed, and suddenly the room felt too small for the power radiating from him. This woman is under my direct protection. Anyone who harms her answers to me. Is that clear? Virgie's face went white. Yes, Your Highness. Get out. They fled. Vince turned back to Phoebe, and his expression softened again. You have questions. I see them in your eyes. She had hundreds, but only one made it past her lips. Why were you pretending to sleep? His smile turned sad. Because I needed to know the truth. I needed to see who you were when you thought no one was watching. And what I saw, Phoebe Cohen. His voice caught. What I saw gave me hope for the first time in a decade. He crossed the room to the window, staring out at the forest. 3 days from now, there's a ball. The Alpha is trying to impress me with eligible daughters, betas and alphas, all desperate to become a Lycan princess. He turned back to her. I want you there. At my side. Me? The word was barely a breath. I'm an Omega. I can't. You can. And you will. His gold eyes burned with determination. But I won't force you. The choice is yours, Phoebe. Walk away now. And I'll ensure you're protected but left alone. Or stay and let me show you what you showed me, that rank means nothing when souls recognize each other. Phoebe's mind reeled. This was impossible. This was insane. But when she looked into those eyes that had wept over her kindness, she saw something she'd never expected to see directed at someone like her. She saw hope. I'll stay, she whispered. His answering smile was sunrise after endless night. Then let me tell you about the nightmares, Vince said softly, gesturing for her to sit. And about the curse that's been killing me slowly for 10 years. Because Phoebe Cohen, you might be the only one who can save me. Chapter 2, The Curse of Blood and Silver. Phoebe sat on the edge of a velvet chair that probably cost more than her entire life, hands folded in her lap, trying to process what was happening. The Lycan Prince Vince, she reminded herself, though using his name felt like sacrilege, stood by the window, silhouetted against the morning light. 10 years ago, he began, his voice distant. I was different. Arrogant. Cruel. Even. I believed power was everything. That strength determined worth. He paused. I was wrong. Phoebe stayed silent, afraid to break whatever spell had made him willing to confide in an Omega. There was a woman, a seer from the Northern Territories. She came to my father's court seeking asylum. She was old, frail, her pack destroyed by rogues. His hands clenched on the windowsill. I laughed at her, called her weak, refused her entry. The shame in his voice was palpable. She cursed me before she died at our gates. Prince of Lycans, he recited, the words clearly burned into his memory. You who value strength above all, you shall lose yours piece by piece. Every full moon, your power will fade. Your wolf will weaken. And when the silver moon rises on your 28th year, you will die powerless and alone. Unless one person, one soul who expects nothing from you shows you genuine compassion in your moment of weakness. Phoebe's breath caught. How old are you now? 27. His gold eyes met hers. I have 3 months. Maybe 4. But the pieces clicked together. The nightmares? The curse manifesting. Every full moon, it gets worse. The nightmares are my wolf dying, piece by piece. He crossed the room, kneeling before her chair so they were eye level. For 10 years I've searched, hired healers, consulted seers, even begged witches. Nothing worked. Because the curse wasn't about magic or medicine, it was about the heart. His hand hovered near hers, not touching, asking permission. Everyone who's tried to help me wanted something. Wealth, power, alliance. Even those who seemed genuine, I could smell the ambition underneath. His voice softened. Until you. An Omega who had nothing to gain and everything to lose, touching a sleeping prince just to ease his pain. Phoebe's throat tightened. I don't understand. How does that break a curse? I don't know if it does, Vince admitted. But for the first time in a decade, I felt something. A warmth. A loosening of the chains around my chest. You weren't trying to break a curse, you didn't even know about it. You were just being kind. And that might be exactly what the seer meant. A knock at the door shattered the moment. Vince rose smoothly, his expression shifting to the cold mask of a prince. Enter. The door opened to reveal a man Phoebe recognized, Alpha Tyrell, leader of Silvercrest Pack. He was broad-shouldered and imposing, with gray-streaked hair and eyes like chips of ice. Behind him stood his daughter, Miriam. Miriam was everything Phoebe wasn't. Tall, elegant, with glossy dark hair and the confident posture of someone who'd never doubted her worth. An alpha female, groomed since birth to be a leader's mate. Your Highness, Tyrell boomed, bowing. I hope you slept well. I've come to discuss the ball arrangements. And his eyes landed on Phoebe, his expression curdled. Why is there an Omega in your chambers? Phoebe is my personal attendant, Vince said coolly. Is there a problem? I know, of course not, Your Highness. But his eyes promised violence later. I simply thought you'd prefer more suitable company. My daughter Miriam, for instance, would be honored too. The Omega stays. Vince's tone left no room for argument. Now, about the ball. Tyrell's jaw clenched, but he continued. 3 days hence, as planned. The finest families from 3 territories will attend. Their daughters are eager to meet you. His smile was oily. I'm certain you'll find a suitable match among them. Perhaps. Vince's voice was non-committal. And what of the alliance terms? As they talked politics, Phoebe tried to make herself invisible. But she felt Miriam's eyes on her, sharp, calculating, venomous. When the Alpha's daughter smiled, it was the smile of a predator spotting wounded prey. Finally, Tyrell and Miriam left. The moment the door closed, Vince's shoulders sagged. You see my problem, he said. Everyone wants the prince. No one wants the man. I see a bigger problem, Phoebe said quietly. Alpha Tyrell looked like he wanted to kill me. And Miriam. She's dangerous. You're observant. Vince's expression turned grim. Tyrell wants his daughter to be Lycan Princess. He sees you as a threat. But I'm nothing. I'm an Omega. You're the woman I smiled at. The woman I defended. He met her eyes. In their world, that makes you the most dangerous person here. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Vince had meetings, and Phoebe returned to her tiny room in the servants' quarters, a space barely large enough for a cot and a wash basin. The other Omegas avoided her now. Fear in their eyes. Word had spread. She was under the prince's protection. That made her either blessed or cursed, depending on who you asked. Night fell. Phoebe lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. A curse, a dying prince. 3 days until a ball where she'd be paraded in front of people who thought she was dirt. Why did you agree to this? Because something in those gold eyes had called to her wolf. Because for the first time in her life, someone had seen her as more than her rank. Because she was tired of being invisible. A sound at her door, soft, careful. She sat up just as it opened. Edwina stood there, backlit by the corridor lamp. 2 other beta girls flanked her, Luella and Kim, both known for their cruelty. Well, Edwina purred. The prince's pet Omega. Mother told me to leave you alone, but... She stepped inside, and the others followed. I don't think she needs to know about a little accident, do you, girls? Phoebe's heart hammered. Get out. Or what? You'll tell your prince? Luella laughed. He's not here, Omega filth. And we're going to teach you what happens when you forget your place. They lunged. Phoebe dodged the first grab, but Kim caught her arm, yanking hard. Pain shot through her shoulder. Edwina's fist connected with her stomach, driving the air from her lungs. This is for thinking you're special, Edwina hissed, raising her hand for another blow. The door exploded inward. Vince stood there, still dressed from dinner, his gold eyes blazing with fury so intense it made the air crackle. His power rolled over them like a physical force, a Lycan's dominance, terrifying and absolute. Out, he roared. The 3 girls scattered like leaves in a hurricane, practically trampling each other to escape. Vince crossed to Phoebe in 2 strides, his hands gentle as they cupped her face. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," she managed, though her stomach ached and her arm throbbed. "You're not fine." His voice shook with barely controlled rage. "Let me see." She lifted her shirt slightly. A bruise was already forming on her ribs. Vince's jaw clenched so hard she heard teeth grind. "They will be punished," he said quietly. "Severely." "No." The word surprised her as much as him. "If you punish them for me, it'll make everything worse. They'll hate me more. Others will hate me. I'll never have a moment's peace. They hurt you. I know. But this is my world, Vince. You can't protect me from all of it." She met his eyes. "If you want to help me, teach me to protect myself." Something flickered in his expression, surprise, respect, something deeper. "You're braver than half the warriors I know." "I'm terrified," she admitted. "But I'm tired of being a victim." He studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. "Tomorrow morning, before dawn, meet me in the training grounds. I'll teach you. I have duties. I'll handle Virgie. Be there." He started to leave, then paused at the door. "Phoebe? The ball. You'll need a dress. Something worthy of." He seemed to struggle for words. "Someone worthy of standing beside a prince. I can't afford." "You're not paying." "I am." He smiled at her, shocked expression. 3 days. We'll make them see what I see, someone extraordinary." After he left, Phoebe touched her bruised ribs and smiled, despite the pain. Someone extraordinary. No one had ever called her that before. Dawn came cold and gray. Phoebe slipped through the sleeping packhouse to the training grounds, a large open space behind the main building where warriors practiced. She'd never been here before. Omegas didn't train. Vince was already there, dressed in simple training clothes that somehow made him look more dangerous, not less. 2 wooden practice swords lay on a bench. "First lesson," he said, tossing her one. "Balance." For the next hour, he taught her basic stances, how to move without telegraphing intent, how to use her smaller size as an advantage. He was patient, correcting her grip with gentle hands, demonstrating movements with fluid grace. "You're quick," he observed, "quicker than most betas I've trained. Your instincts are good. My mother used to say I had a rabbit's reflexes." Phoebe laughed breathlessly. "I thought it was an insult. It's a gift. Rabbits survive because they're smart and fast. Warriors survive because they're strong. But someone who's smart, fast, and learning to be strong?" He smiled. "That's someone dangerous." They trained until the sun rose fully, until Phoebe's muscles screamed and sweat soaked through her clothes. But she felt alive, powerful in a way she'd never experienced. "Same time tomorrow," Vince said as they finished. "And the next day, by the ball, you'll know enough to handle yourself." "Why are you doing this?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "Really?" He was quiet for a moment, his gold eyes distant. "Because you did something for me, something that might save my life without knowing the stakes, without wanting anything in return." He met her gaze. "And because when I look at you, I don't see an Omega. I see someone who deserves to be protected, trained, and celebrated." In that order, her heart did something complicated and dangerous. "The dress arrives this afternoon," he continued. "A seamstress from the capital. She'll fit it to you. Don't argue, just accept it." His expression turned mischievous. "Consider it payment for saving a dying prince's nightmares." "Vince, 2 more days, Phoebe. 2 more days. And then we show them all what happens when someone judges a book by its worn cover." He touched her cheek. Barely a brush of fingers. "They're going to be shocked." As he walked away, Phoebe stood in the training ring, wooden sword still in hand, and let herself imagine it, walking into that ball. Not as an Omega, not as a servant, but as someone seen. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Chapter 3. The Dress and the Declaration. The seamstress arrived precisely at noon, accompanied by 2 assistants and enough fabric to clothe an army. Her name was Rebecca, and she swept into the servants' quarters like a force of nature, a tiny woman with sharp eyes and hands that moved with the precision of a surgeon. Virgie intercepted her at the entrance, her face twisted with confusion and rage. There must be some mistake. The prince ordered a gown for his personal attendant, but surely he meant exactly who he said. Rebecca's voice was crisp, brooking no argument. Now, where is Phoebe Cohen? The use of Phoebe's full name, spoken with respect, not contempt, sent whispers rippling through the gathered servants. Phoebe emerged from the shadows of the corridor, acutely aware of every eye on her. I'm Phoebe. Rebecca's expression softened. Ah. Yes. I see it now. She circled Phoebe like an artist examining a canvas. Good bones. Beautiful eyes. Terrible posture, but we'll fix that. Come, child. We have work to do. She commandeered one of the larger storage rooms, shooing out the protesting Virgie with a wave of her hand. The prince pays my fee, not you. Leave us. Once alone, Rebecca's assistants began unpacking bolts of fabric silks and satins in colors Phoebe had only seen in dreams. Deep emeralds, midnight blues, silver that caught the light like water. Now then, Rebecca said, producing a measuring tape. Arms up. The prince was very specific in his instructions. He wants you to look like yourself. Only more so. Not transformed into something you're not, but elevated to show what was always there. She smiled. He has good instincts. That one. Rare in royalty. As Rebecca measured and muttered, Phoebe found her voice. Why are you being kind to me? You know I'm an Omega. The seamstress paused, meeting her eyes. I know what you are, child. I also know what the prince sees in you. I saw it the moment you walked in. Strength wrapped in gentleness, courage hiding behind courtesy. She resumed measuring. Besides, I dressed his mother once, years ago, the queen. She taught me that rank is accident of birth, but character? That's choice. You choose to be kind. That's rarer than any title. Tears pricked Phoebe's eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This dress is going to make enemies of every ambitious female in 3 territories. Rebecca grinned wickedly. But that's half the fun, isn't it? For the next 3 hours, Phoebe stood while Rebecca and her assistants draped, pinned, adjusted, and occasionally argued in rapid-fire technical language. She caught glimpses of the design in the mirror. They'd brought something in deep forest green that seemed to shimmer between colors depending on the light. The prince said green, Rebecca explained. He said your eyes reminded him of spring forests after rain. Poetic for a warrior, but accurate. She stepped back, examining her work. Perfect. Come back tomorrow for the final fitting. And child? Practice walking in heels. The shoes arrived tomorrow as well. After they left, Phoebe stood alone in the storage room, staring at her reflection in the mirror. For just a moment, with the careful draping of fabric pinned around her, she looked different. Not like an Omega, like someone who belonged in that ballroom. The illusion shattered when Miriam appeared in the doorway, playing dress-up. The Alpha's daughter leaned against the frame, her smile poisonous. How charming. Tell me, Omega, do you actually think a pretty dress will change what you are? Phoebe turned slowly, remembering Vince's training that morning. Balance, posture. Don't show fear. I think I'm exactly what I've always been. The question is whether you're secure enough in your position to accept that. Miriam's eyes flashed. She crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping mere inches from Phoebe. Up close, her perfume was overwhelming jasmine and something darker, like rotting flowers. Listen carefully. Omega filth, she hissed. I don't know what game you're playing with the prince, but it ends now. My father has already begun negotiations for my betrothal. By the end of the ball, Prince Vince will announce our engagement, and you will disappear, one way or another. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Miriam's smile widened. And just so you know exactly where you stand, the prince has been entertaining me privately. Late-night visits, intimate conversations. He's simply amusing himself with you until the real courtship begins. The words were designed to wound, and they did. But Phoebe had spent 17 years learning to hide pain. If you're so confident, why threaten me at all? For just a second, uncertainty flickered across Miriam's perfect face. Then it was gone, replaced by cold fury. Stay away from him. This is your only warning. She left in a sweep of expensive perfume and barely contained rage. Phoebe sank onto a storage crate, hands shaking. Was it true? Had Vince been seeing Miriam? No, she'd felt his sincerity in the training ring, seen the tears on his face. But doubt was a poison, and Miriam had planted it expertly. Trust your instincts, her mother's voice whispered in memory. Trust what you see, not what you're told. She'd seen genuine emotion in Vince's eyes. Miriam's words were designed to manipulate. Phoebe stood, straightening her shoulders the way Vince had taught her. 2 more days. She could survive 2 more days. That evening, Vince appeared at the servants' entrance with a request that sent the entire kitchen into chaos. He wanted dinner with Phoebe. Private. In his chambers. Absolutely inappropriate, Virgie sputtered. And Omega, dining with a prince, unchaperoned. I wasn't asking permission, Vince said calmly. I was informing you. Have the meal sent up in an hour. He turned to Phoebe, who stood frozen in shock. Come. We need to talk. She followed him through the pack house, feeling every stare like a brand. By tomorrow, rumors would be everywhere. By the ball, they'd be scandals. In his chambers, Vince gestured to the small table by the window, already set for 2. Sit, please. This is going to make everything worse, Phoebe said quietly. The others already hate me. This will. I know. He poured wine, real wine, not the cheap stuff servants drank, and handed her a glass. And I'm sorry for that. But we're running out of time, and there are things you need to know before the ball. The full moon hung outside the window, fat and silver. Phoebe noticed the tension in Vince's shoulders, the tight set of his jaw. The curse? It's getting worse. He sat across from her, and in the candlelight, she saw what she'd missed earlier, the shadows under his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands. Each full moon drains me. Tomorrow night is the moon before the ball. It will be. Bad. How bad? I'll survive. Barely. His gold eyes met hers. But I need you to promise me something. If I become dangerous, if my wolf loses control, you run. You don't try to help. You run and lock yourself somewhere safe. No. His expression hardened. Phoebe, you didn't run when I was being attacked. You didn't calculate the risk and decide I wasn't worth it. She leaned forward. So no, I won't promise to abandon you. Whatever happens tomorrow night, I'll be there. For a long moment, he simply stared at her. Then, incredibly, he laughed, a short, breathless sound. You're going to be the death of me. Or my salvation. I honestly can't tell which. A knock interrupted them. Dinner arrived, roasted meat, fresh bread, vegetables prepared with herbs Phoebe couldn't name. Food she'd only ever served, never tasted. They ate slowly, conversation flowing easier than it should between a prince and an Omega. He told her about his childhood, about the pressure of being a Lycan heir. She told him about her mother, about learning to be invisible to survive. Your mother sounds wise, Vince said softly. She was. She used to say that strength isn't about power, it's about choosing kindness, even when cruelty would be easier. Phoebe smiled sadly. She died believing that. The pack healers were too busy to treat an Omega's pneumonia. Vince's hand clenched on his fork. That's not a pack. That's a travesty wearing a pack's skin. It's all I've ever known. Then let me show you different. He reached across the table, palm up, offering. Let me show you a world where worth isn't determined by birth, where kindness is strength, not weakness. Phoebe placed her hand in his. His palm was warm, calloused from weapons training, and the touch sent electricity up her arm. Her wolf stirred, recognizing something profound. Mate, her wolf whispered. Ours. No. That was impossible. Lycans didn't mate with Omegas, the bond wouldn't even form. But she felt it. A golden thread connecting them, thin as gossamer but growing stronger by the moment. Phoebe? Vince's eyes had gone wide. Do you feel that? I don't understand, she whispered. This can't happen. The hierarchy doesn't allow. The hierarchy is broken. His voice was rough with emotion. The mate bond doesn't care about rank, it cares about souls. And my soul recognized yours the moment you touched me with kindness. He stood, pulling her to her feet, never releasing her hand. I wasn't going to tell you yet. I wanted to be sure, wanted to wait until after the curse was broken. But Phoebe Cohen, you are my mate, my true mate, and in 2 days, I'm going to announce it to everyone. They'll riot, she said, even as joy and terror warred in her chest. Alpha Tyrell will challenge you, Miriam. Can try. His smile turned dangerous. I'm still a Lycan Prince, curse or not. And no one keeps me from my mate. He cupped her face with his free hand, his thumb brushing her cheek with infinite gentleness. But I need your consent. If you don't want this, if the danger and the hatred and the politics are too much, tell me now. I'll protect you regardless. You'll never have to serve again, never have to fear, but if you don't want the bond, I want it. The words escaped before fear could silence them. I want you. Even though it's insane. Even though we'll face hell for it. His forehead touched hers, and she felt his exhale of relief. Then we face hell together. The kiss was inevitable. Gentle at first, testing. Then deeper as the mate bond sang between them. Phoebe felt herself dissolving into light. Into sensation. Into something bigger than rank or fear, or a crash from the corridor. Shouting, running footsteps. Vince pulled back, instantly alert. Stay here. He crossed to the door, yanking it open. A young beta warrior stumbled in, face pale with panic. Your Highness, the rogues, they've breached the northern border. 20 strong, maybe more. We need. His eyes landed on Phoebe, widened with shock at seeing an Omega in the prince's chambers after dark. I'll be there immediately. Vince turned to Phoebe. Lock this door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me. Be careful, she said. He kissed her once more, quick and fierce. Tomorrow night. The full moon. Don't come to me, no matter what you hear. Promise me that much. I promise to be careful, she said, which wasn't the same thing at all. His expression said he knew it. But there was no time. He left with the warrior, and Phoebe was alone with a half-finished dinner and the knowledge that everything had just changed. The mate bond hummed in her chest, golden and warm and terrifying. Tomorrow was the full moon. The day after, the ball. And somewhere in the pack house, Miriam and Alpha Tyrell were plotting. Phoebe locked the door and pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the bond's warmth. 2 days until everything either shattered or transformed. She intended to make sure it was the latter. Chapter 4. The Full Moon's Price. The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Vince was consumed with managing the rogue threat patrols doubled, warriors stationed at every border. Phoebe barely saw him, catching only glimpses as he moved through the pack house with Alpha Tyrell and his commanders. Every glimpse made her heart clench tighter. He looked exhausted, his skin pale beneath the tan, movements just slightly off rhythm. The full moon was hours away, and the curse was already draining him. Rebecca arrived mid-afternoon for the final fitting. This time, she brought the completed dress, and when Phoebe saw it fully assembled, her breath caught. The gown was forest green silk that shifted to gold in certain lights, fitted at the bodice with delicate embroidery that resembled vines and flowers done in threads so fine it seemed to grow from the fabric itself. The skirt flowed like water, layers upon layers that would move when she walked. It was elegant without being ostentatious, beautiful without screaming for attention. It was perfect. The prince has excellent taste, Rebecca said, helping Phoebe into it. He described exactly what he wanted, something that would make you feel like yourself, just elevated. How does it feel? Like wearing moonlight, Phoebe whispered. The seamstress laughed. Poetic. I like you, child. Now, the shoes. She produced heels in matching green. Not too high but enough to change Phoebe's posture, her walk. Practice in these. You have until tomorrow night. After Rebecca left, Phoebe stood before the mirror in her tiny room, wearing the dress, and barely recognized herself. The Omega was still there in her eyes, her face, her bones. But something else shone through now. Something that had always been there, just buried under years of being told she was worthless. Dignity. Well, Phoebe spun. Edwina stood in the doorway with Luella and Kim, the same trio who'd attacked her. But this time, they kept their distance, wary after Vince's fury. Pretty dress, Edwina sneered. Won't change what you are underneath. Omega filth playing princess. Get out, Phoebe said quietly. Or what? Your prince is busy with real pack business, with my father and Miriam. Edwina's smile was cruel. Did you know they're announcing the engagement tomorrow? Right before the ball. Miriam will enter as the future Lycan Princess, and you'll be back where you belong, scrubbing floors. If that's true, why do you look so desperate to convince me? Phoebe asked. The training Vince had given her wasn't just physical, it was mental. Stand tall, don't show weakness. If Miriam was secure in her position, she wouldn't need you to do her threatening. Luella stepped forward. You think you're clever now? You think a few training sessions make you one of us? I don't want to be one of you, Phoebe said simply. I've seen how you treat people you consider beneath you. I'd rather stay an Omega with kindness than become a Beta with cruelty. The words hit harder than any physical blow. Edwina's face flushed red. You'll regret this. Tomorrow night, when you're humiliated in front of everyone, remember that we tried to warn you. They left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Phoebe carefully removed the dress, hanging it with shaking hands. She'd stood up to them. Actually stood up, using words as weapons the way Vince had taught her to use her body in combat. It felt powerful, but their words lingered, planting seeds of doubt. An engagement announcement? Was it possible? Had Vince been negotiating with Tyrell while promising Phoebe forever? No, her wolf growled. Mate doesn't lie. Trust the bond. The mate bond hummed in her chest, warm and steady. If Vince had been lying, would it feel like this? Like coming home? She had to believe it wouldn't. Sunset came too quickly. Phoebe watched from her window as the sky bled from gold to red to deep purple. The full moon rose, enormous and silver, casting everything in its cold light. Somewhere in the pack house, Vince was preparing for the worst night of his monthly cycle. She'd promised to stay away. She'd promised to be careful. The screaming started an hour after moonrise. It was distant at first, a sound of pure agony that raised every hair on Phoebe's body. Her wolf howled in response, desperate to reach their mate. He needs us, her wolf insisted. He's dying. He told us to stay away, Phoebe whispered. But her hands were already moving, pulling on her worn dress, her shoes. Another scream, closer now. And underneath it, the sound of something breaking furniture, maybe, or bones. She ran. The east wing was in chaos. Warriors stood outside Vince's chambers, but they made no move to enter. Alpha Tyrell was there, his expression calculating rather than concerned. You can't go in there, Omega, one warrior said, blocking her path. The prince ordered. Let her through, Tyrell said suddenly. His smile was serpentine. If the little Omega wants to die trying to save him, who are we to stop her? The warriors exchanged uncertain looks but stepped aside. Phoebe didn't waste time questioning the Alpha's sudden cooperation. She pushed through the door and into hell. The room was destroyed. Furniture overturned, curtains shredded, deep claw marks scored across the walls and floor. And in the center of the devastation, Vince knelt on the ground, his body convulsing. His skin had taken on a gray tinge, like he was turning to stone. Black veins spider-webbed across his exposed skin, pulsing with sickly light. His eyes, when they opened, were wild, the gold overtaken by silver that looked like liquid mercury. Phoebe, he gasped. Run. Can't. Control. She crossed to him instead, dropping to her knees. Up close, she could see him fighting the transformation not into his wolf, but into something else. Something wrong. I'm here, she said softly, the same words she'd used during his nightmares. You're not alone. The curse, he gritted out. It's changing me, making me. Monster. Trying to. Prevent the bond. His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist hard enough to bruise. Run, please, don't want. Hurt you. The black veins were spreading, his canines elongated, not into wolf fangs but something sharper, more vicious. His grip tightened, and she felt bones grind together. You're stronger than this, Phoebe said, ignoring the pain. The curse wants you to believe you're a monster. But I know what you are. I've seen your heart. I've felt your kindness. Not kind, he snarled, his voice distorting. Cursed. Dying. Dangerous. Then die knowing someone saw past the curse to who you really are. She placed her free hand on his chest, over his heart. The bond flared gold light erupting between them, pushing back the sickly black. Vince's eyes widened. What are you? I don't know, she admitted. But the bond is fighting it. Your wolf knows me, knows I'm not a threat. Let it guide you back. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Vince threw his head back and roared a sound that shook the windows, that made the moon seem to pulse in sympathy. The black veins writhed, fighting the gold light spreading from where Phoebe touched him. That's it, she whispered. Come back. Come back to me. The door burst open. Alpha Tyrell stood there with Miriam and 3 warriors. Secure the prince, Tyrell commanded. The Omega has driven him into rage. She must be removed. No. Phoebe tried to maintain contact, but the warriors pulled her back, breaking the connection. The moment her hand left his chest, the black veins surged forward again, swallowing the gold. Vince's scream was agony-made sound. Let me go. Phoebe fought, but beta strength overpowered her easily. You're killing him. The bond was working. The bond is an illusion, Tyrell said coldly. A dying prince's desperate fantasy. My daughter is his true match. He nodded to Miriam, who approached Vince cautiously, her hand extended. Prince Vince, she said in a voice like honey. Let me help you. Let me ease your pain. Vince's mercury eyes locked on Miriam. For one horrible moment, Phoebe thought it would work, that whatever magic Tyrell had planned would override the mate bond. Then Vince moved. He was across the room in a heartbeat, his hand around Miriam's throat, lifting her off the ground. You are not my mate, he growled, his voice layered with harmonics that made reality seem to bend. You smell of lies and ambition and poison. Your Highness. Tyrell's mask slipped, revealing panic. Release her. Why? Vince tilted his head, the gesture disturbingly inhuman. She came to help. Let's see how helpful she really is when faced with a monster. Vince. Phoebe's voice cut through the chaos. That's not you. Don't let the curse make you into what it wants. Don't prove them right. His eyes found hers. For a second, she saw him, her Vince, trapped behind the curse's influence, fighting to stay human. Phoebe, he whispered. I'm here. I'm not leaving. But you have to let her go. Not because she deserves mercy, but because you're better than the curse believes. Slowly, trembling with effort, Vince lowered Miriam. She collapsed, gasping, hand to her bruised throat. Tyrell rushed to her side, his face murderous. This is an outrage. The Alpha roared. You attacked my daughter. The alliance is... There is no alliance, Vince said, his voice steadier now, though still edged with the curse's distortion. There never was. Your daughter is not my mate. Your ambitions mean nothing. He looked at Phoebe. Let her go. Now. The warriors released her immediately. Phoebe ran to Vince, and the moment she touched him, the gold light flared again. The black veins retreated. Just slightly. Impossible. Tyrell breathed. An Omega cannot. Get out, Vince commanded. Power rolled through the words, pure Lycan dominance that made even the Alpha stagger. All of you, now. They fled. Even Miriam, despite her injury, practically ran. Alone again, Vince collapsed into Phoebe's arms. The black veins were still there, still pulsing, but slower now. Less aggressive. You broke your promise, he said weakly. I promised to be careful. I was careful. She helped him to the bed, one of the few pieces of furniture still intact. How do we stop this? We don't. Not tonight. His breathing was labored. The full moon has to pass. But Phoebe, what you did. The bond. It's fighting the curse. The seer said, genuine compassion from someone who expected nothing. Phoebe said slowly. What if the mate bond is the key? Not just compassion, but love. Love. He laughed, the sound bitter. I've known you days. And yet. She placed her hand over his heart again, feeling the bond pulse. I think I've been waiting my whole life to meet you. I think my soul knew yours before we ever spoke. His hand covered hers. If I survive this, if we break the curse, they'll come for you. Tyrell won't accept an Omega. As Lycan Princess. He'll challenge. Or plot. Or, then we deal with it together. She leaned down, pressing her forehead to his. Tomorrow is the ball. Tomorrow we show them that rank is meaningless, compared to souls recognizing each other. You're insane, he whispered. Probably, but I'm your kind of insane. He pulled her down beside him, wrapping his arms around her despite the tremors still racking his body. Stay. Just stay until the moon sets. I need to feel you here. Need to know this is real. I'm not going anywhere. They lay together as the full moon arced across the sky, as the curse fought the bond and the bond fought back. Phoebe felt every surge of pain through their connection. Every moment, Vince struggled to stay himself. And she stayed. When dawn finally broke, the black veins had faded to faint shadows beneath his skin. Vince was unconscious, but breathing steadily, his color closer to normal. Phoebe extracted herself carefully, smoothing his hair back from his face. Sleep now. Tonight, we dance. She slipped from the room to find Rebecca waiting in the corridor, the dress box in her arms. I heard the screaming, the seamstress said quietly. I thought you'd need this when morning came. For courage, if nothing else. Thank you, Phoebe whispered. Don't thank me yet, child. Tonight, you walk into a room full of people who want you destroyed. Rebecca's expression turned fierce. But you walk in on the arm of a prince who would burn the world for you. Remember that when they try to tear you down. Phoebe took the box, feeling its weight. Inside was her transformation, her declaration, her future. I'll remember, she promised. Chapter 5, The Preparation. The pack house buzzed with preparations for the ball. Servants rushed through corridors carrying flowers, decorations, and endless trays of food. The grand ballroom, a space Phoebe had only ever cleaned, was being transformed into something from a fairy tale. She should have been part of the preparation crew. Instead, she'd been summoned to Vince's chambers. He answered the door himself, looking remarkably recovered considering the previous night's ordeal. The shadows under his eyes remained, and faint gray lines traced across his skin where the black veins had been, but his gold eyes were clear and focused. You're awake, she said, relief flooding through her. Thanks to you. He pulled her inside, closing the door. The bond saved me, Phoebe. I felt it fighting the curse, giving me something to anchor to when everything else was chaos. His hands framed her face. How are you? I know I hurt you, your wrist. It's fine. She'd wrapped it, hidden the bruising. You weren't yourself. That's not an excuse. His thumb traced her cheek with infinite gentleness. But it's proof that you're stronger than anyone gives you credit for. You walked into that room knowing I could kill you, and you stayed anyway. You're my mate. Where else would I be? The kiss was slow, tender, full of promise and fear and desperate hope. When they broke apart, Vince rested his forehead against hers. Tonight changes everything, he said quietly. Once I announce our bond publicly, there's no going back. Tyrell will challenge, maybe not immediately, but he will. Other packs will question my judgment. Some will call for me to reject you. And you? Her heart hammered. Will you? Never. The word was a vow. But I need you to understand what you're walking into. This isn't just a ball. It's a declaration of war against centuries of tradition. You'll have enemies. Powerful ones. I know. She'd thought about little else since dawn. But I'm tired of hiding. Tired of being invisible. If I'm going to have enemies anyway, I'd rather have them while standing beside you than while scrubbing their floors. His smile was fierce with pride. Then we do this together. But first he crossed to his wardrobe, pulling out a small velvet box. This was my mother's. She died when I was 12, but she made me promise to give it to my true mate, not a political match. Inside the box lay a necklace, a pendant of silver and moonstone that caught the light and seemed to glow from within. It was simple but exquisite, the kind of jewelry that whispered a value rather than shouting it. It's beautiful, Phoebe breathed. It's meant to be worn by a Luna, a true Luna, not just an Alpha's mate. He lifted it from the box. My mother said it would recognize the rightful wearer, that it would glow when touching the skin of someone worthy. His hands were gentle as he fastened it around her neck. Let's see if she was right. The moment the pendant touched Phoebe's skin, it flared with soft light, not harsh or blinding, but warm, like moonlight given form. The glow pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, with the mate bond, creating patterns across her skin. Vince's breath caught. She was right. She's always been right. Phoebe touched the pendant, feeling its warmth. I don't understand. I'm an Omega. How can I be? Because rank is an illusion created by wolves who needed control. His voice was urgent now, intense. Real power, Luna power, comes from the soul, not the bloodline. My mother was a beta who became the strongest Luna in 3 generations. She knew that what matters isn't what you're born as, but who you choose to become. I'm scared, Phoebe admitted. Good. So am I. He pulled her close. But we're scared together. And that makes all the difference. Hours later, back in her tiny room, Phoebe stared at the dress hanging on the door. The ball started at sunset less than 2 hours away. A knock interrupted her thoughts. She opened the door expecting Rebecca, but found someone else entirely. Jody Hurley stood there, another Omega from the servants' quarters. They'd never spoken much. Jody kept to herself, worked the kitchens, avoided attention, but now she held a small basket, her expression nervous. I know we're not friends, Jody said quickly. But I heard what you did last night. How you went to the prince during the full moon. She thrust the basket forward. I brought things. For your hair. For tonight. Inside were pins, ribbons, a small pot of rouge, humble offerings, but precious coming from someone who had almost nothing. Why? Phoebe asked softly. Jody met her eyes. Because for the first time since I was born Omega, someone is showing them we're not worthless. You're terrifying and inspiring in equal measure. She smiled, small and tentative. And I want to help, even if it's just pins. Phoebe's throat tightened. Thank you. Would you help me prepare? I don't know how to do any of this. Relief flooded Jody's face. I'd be honored. For the next hour, they worked together. Jody had a talent for hair, twisting and pinning Phoebe's dark locks into something elegant but natural, with small braids woven through. The rouge added color to Phoebe's pale cheeks. When she finally donned the dress, Jody stepped back with tears in her eyes. You look like a queen, she whispered. I look like me, Phoebe corrected gently. Just more visible. That's what terrifies them. Jody touched the moonstone pendant, which still glowed softly. This is Luna magic. Old magic. They can't deny this. They'll try. Let them. Jody's expression turned fierce. You have at least one ally in the servants' quarters. Maybe more than you know. We're all watching tonight, hoping you succeed. The weight of that hope settled on Phoebe's shoulders. This wasn't just about her anymore. She was representing every Omega who'd ever been told they were worthless. No pressure, she thought wryly. Another knock, urgent, sharp. Jody opened the door to reveal one of the beta warriors. The same one who'd announced the rogue attack. Miss Cohen, he said formally. Prince Vince requests your presence in the East Wing. Immediately, Jody squeezed Phoebe's hand once, then disappeared. Phoebe followed the warrior through corridors, now decorated with silk and candlelight, past servants who stopped to stare, their expressions ranging from awe to hatred. The East Wing had been transformed. Music drifted from the ballroom, a string quartet warming up. Through open doors she glimpsed chandeliers dripping with crystals, tables laden with food, flowers everywhere. But the warrior led her past the ballroom to a smaller chamber. Inside, Vince waited, dressed in formal attire that made him look every inch the prince's black coat embroidered with silver, his hair tied back, showcasing the sharp angles of his face. He turned when she entered, and his expression stole her breath. Phoebe, he breathed. I have no words. Neither do I. You look terrified? He laughed shakily. Because I am. In an hour, I'm going to stand before 3 packs and announce that I've found my true mate, an Omega from the pack that's hosting me. They'll think it's insanity, or insult, or both. We could still. No. He crossed to her, taking her hands. No running. No hiding. I've spent 10 years hiding from a curse. I won't spend another moment hiding the best thing that's ever happened to me. The door opened without knocking. Alpha Terrell entered, Miriam at his side. The Alpha's daughter still wore a scarf to hide the bruises on her throat, her expression venomous. A word, Prince Vince, Terrell said coldly. In private. Anything you say to me can be said in front of my mate, Vince replied. Your mate? Tyrell's laugh was sharp. You can't be serious. She's an Omega, a servant. This is either a cruel joke or evidence that the curse has damaged your mind. Neither. Vince's voice dropped to a growl. Phoebe is my true mate, recognized by the bond and by Luna magic itself. He gestured to the glowing pendant. That was my mother's necklace. It only glows for a worthy Luna. Do you deny what your eyes show you? Tyrell's face had gone purple. Luna magic or not, she's unsuitable. The council will never accept. The council will accept what I tell them to accept. Vince interrupted. I am the Lycan Prince. My word is law within my own affairs. Then you're a fool. Tyrell stepped closer, his voice dropping to something dangerous. I came here to offer you an alliance. My daughter, trained since birth to be a Luna. Political connections across 3 territories, strength, beauty, breeding everything a Lycan Prince needs. And you choose this. He gestured dismissively at Phoebe. I choose my mate, Vince said simply. Then you choose war. Tyrell's smile was cold. Because I will not stand by and watch an Omega make a mockery of everything we've built. If you announce this tonight, I will challenge your authority. I will bring every pack that values tradition to oppose you. And when the dust settles, your precious Omega will be exactly where she belongs beneath us. Try it, Vince said softly, dangerously. And learn why even cursed, a Lycan Prince is not something you threaten. Miriam had been silent, but now she laughed a sound like breaking ice. Father, let it go. Let him announce his little Omega. Let him make himself ridiculous. Her eyes found Phoebe, glittering with malice. Because I have a gift for tonight's festivities. Something I've been saving for just the right moment. What gift? Vince demanded. You'll see. Miriam's smile widened. But I promise, by the time the night ends, everyone will see exactly what your mate really is, and you'll be begging to reject her. They left. Tyrell's threats hanging in the air like smoke. Vince's hands clenched into fists. What is she planning? I don't know. Phoebe's mind raced. What could Miriam possibly have? Some scandal? Some lie? But whatever it is, we face it together. Together, he echoed. He pulled her close, breathing in her scent. In 30 minutes, the ball begins. Are you ready? No, she admitted, but I'm going anyway. He laughed, the sound breaking the tension. That's my mate, terrified but courageous. He tilted her chin up, his gold eyes serious. Whatever Miriam tries, whatever lies or schemes or political games, remember that the bond is real. That what we feel is real. Don't let them make you doubt that. I won't, she promised. But even as she said it, doubt whispered in the back of her mind. What could Miriam possibly reveal that would turn everyone against her? It doesn't matter, her wolf insisted. We have our mate. We have the bond. That's enough. Phoebe touched the pendant, feeling its warmth, its steady glow. Luna magic. Old magic. Proof that she was more than her rank. She just had to believe it herself. Come, Vince said, offering his arm. Let's show them what happens when souls recognize each other despite every law telling them they shouldn't. Phoebe took his arm, feeling the mate bond surge between them, golden, warm, and unbreakable. Together, they walked toward the ballroom, toward the music and light and waiting crowds, toward whatever Miriam had planned, toward their future, whatever form it took. The grand doors opened before them, and Phoebe took her first step into a world that had never wanted her. But on Vince's arm, wearing his mother's necklace, feeling the mate bond sing in her chest, she'd never felt more like she belonged anywhere. Chapter 6. The Ball and the Betrayal. The ballroom was a dream brought to life. Hundreds of candles cast golden light across marble floors polished to mirror brightness. Crystal chandeliers hung from the vaulted ceiling like frozen stars. Tables draped in white silk lined the walls, laden with food and drink that spoke of wealth beyond imagining. And everywhere on every surface, woven through every decoration, were silver wolves, the symbol of the Silvercrest pack. But it was the people who made Phoebe's breath catch. Alphas and betas from 3 territories filled the space, dressed in their finest. The women wore gowns in every color imaginable, jewels glittering at throats and wrists. The men were sharp in formal attire, their postures radiating power and confidence. Everyone who mattered in the wolf world was here, and they all turned to stare as Phoebe entered on Vince's arm. The music faltered. Conversations died mid-sentence. In the sudden silence, Phoebe heard her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. They know, she thought. One look and they know what I am. But Vince's arm was steady beneath her hand. He held his head high, gold eyes sweeping the crowd with the casual dominance of someone born to rule. Breathe, he murmured. Let them look. Alpha Tyrell stood near the center of the room with Miriam at his side. The Alpha's expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes promised violence. Miriam's smile was all teeth, sharp and anticipating. The string quartet resumed playing a waltz, elegant and timeless. Vince led Phoebe onto the dance floor, and the crowd parted like water around stones. I don't know how to dance, Phoebe whispered urgently. Follow my lead. Trust me. His hand settled at her waist, the other taking hers. And ignore everyone else. Right now there's only us. They began to move. Vince was right, following him was instinctive. He guided her through the steps with subtle pressure, his movements fluid and assured. Phoebe focused on his face, on the warmth in his gold eyes, and slowly the fear began to recede. The pendant glowed against her chest, visible to everyone, impossible to deny. Around them, other couples joined the dance floor, carefully maintaining distance, as if proximity to an Omega might be contagious. Phoebe caught whispers, saw the pointing, felt the weight of their judgment. You're doing beautifully, Vince said softly. They hate me. They fear you. There's a difference. He spun her gently, and her dress flared like wings. You represent change. A world where rank doesn't determine destiny. That terrifies people who've built their entire identity on a hierarchy. The waltz ended. Vince led her to the edge of the dance floor, as the crowd applauded politely, coldly. Alpha Tyrell approached with Miriam, flanked by several high-ranking wolves from other packs. Prince Vince, Tyrell said formally. Perhaps now would be an appropriate time for introductions? Your companion seems to be causing quite a stir. Indeed. Vince's voice carried across the ballroom, cutting through the murmurs. Everyone, if I might have your attention. The room fell silent again. Every eye turned to them. I came to Silvercrest to negotiate an alliance, Vince continued. But I found something far more valuable. I found my true mate. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Miriam's smile widened. Tyrell's jaw clenched. This is Phoebe Cohen, Vince said, his hand tightening on hers. And yes, before rumors begin, she was born Omega. But as my mother's necklace proves, he gestured to the glowing pendant. True Luna power recognizes no rank. The mate bond has formed between us, sanctioned by the moon herself. Any who would challenge this, challenges me directly. The silence was deafening. Then someone laughed. A woman in the crowd, an alpha female with gray hair and sharp features. A Lycan Prince. Mated to an Omega? This is either the greatest joke in a century, or proof the curse has rotted your mind. Others joined in, laughter spreading like disease. Silence! Vince's power crashed over the room like a physical force. Wolves dropped to their knees involuntarily, unable to resist a Lycan's dominance. Even alphas bowed under the weight of it. I am still your prince. You will show respect. The laughter died, but the mockery in their eyes remained. A pretty speech, Tyrell said, rising slowly. But words mean nothing without truth to back them. How do we know this mate bond is real? How do we know she hasn't manipulated you with magic or trickery? After all, his smile was poisonous. Omegas are known for their persuasive abilities when desperate. The implication hung in the air. Around them, wolves nodded, whispering agreement. Phoebe's cheeks burned. She started to speak, to defend herself, but Vince beat her to it. The pendant doesn't lie, he said coldly. Luna magic cannot be fooled or manipulated. It glows for Phoebe because she is worthy. That is truth enough. Is it? Miriam stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly. Or is there another truth you're conveniently ignoring? Another reason she might want to trap a dying prince? What are you implying? Vince's voice dropped dangerously low. I'm not implying anything. Miriam produced a folded paper from inside her sleeve, the gesture theatrical, calculated. I'm stating facts. You see, I've been doing research about your precious mate, about her mother, about secrets the Omega likes to keep hidden. Phoebe's blood turned to ice. No. She couldn't know. There's no way. What secrets? Vince demanded. Miriam unfolded the paper slowly, savoring the moment. This is a birth record. Filed 17 years ago in the Silvercrest archives. Phoebe Cohen, daughter of Harriet Cohen Omega, of Silvercrest Pack. She paused dramatically. And daughter of… Well, that's where it gets interesting. Get to the point, Vince growled. The father's name was removed from the official records, sealed by order of the Alpha at the time, Tyrell's predecessor. Strange, don't you think? Why would a simple Omega's birth record require such secrecy? Miriam's eyes glittered with malicious joy. So I dug deeper. Found old servants who remembered. Found the pack healer who attended the birth. And do you know what I discovered? Phoebe wanted to run, wanted to disappear, but Vince's hand held hers, anchoring her even as her world began to crumble. Phoebe's father, Miriam announced, her voice ringing through the ballroom, was the former Alpha's son, Tyrell's half-brother, killed in a border dispute before Phoebe was born. Which means our little Omega isn't really an Omega at all. She's half Alpha. Illegitimate, yes. Hidden, yes. But Alpha blood nonetheless. The room erupted. Accusations flew. Some called Phoebe a liar, others called her ambitious. Still others simply looked disgusted that Alpha blood had been polluted by mixing with an Omega. But Vince just stared at her, his expression unreadable. Is this true? He asked quietly. Phoebe's throat closed. Words died before they could form. Because yes, it was true. She'd known her mother had told her on her deathbed, begged her to keep the secret, warned her that claiming Alpha heritage would only bring death. I didn't know. She finally managed. Not until my mother was dying. She made me promise never to tell anyone. She said they'd kill me rather than acknowledge a bastard Alpha child. So you lied, Tyrell said, his voice cutting. You presented yourself as Omega when you knew you carried Alpha blood. You deceived everyone, including the prince. I didn't deceive. Phoebe turned desperately to Vince. I never claimed to be anything but Omega. That's how I was raised. That's all I've ever known. The blood doesn't change, doesn't it? Miriam interrupted. Because now we have to wonder, did you know about the mate bond? Did you seek out the prince deliberately, knowing your hidden Alpha blood might make you acceptable? Is this all a scheme to climb from servant to princess? If Phoebe's truth, however complicated, still deserves your support, please hit the like button. That's insane, Phoebe said, her voice shaking. I didn't even know he was my mate until when? Tyrell pressed. Until after you'd insinuated yourself into his chambers? After you'd isolated him from suitable matches? How convenient that the curse suddenly started improving after you arrived. Because the mate bond, or because you're using Alpha manipulation tactics. Miriam's voice rose. Everyone knows Alphas can influence other wolves. What if you've been manipulating him all along? Using your hidden blood to create a false bond. The pendant glows. Vince snapped. You can't fake Luna magic. Can't you? An older woman stepped forward, a council member, judging by the silver pins on her gown. Luna magic responds to worthiness, yes. But it also responds to blood. Alpha blood. If she's carrying Alpha heritage, the pendant might glow regardless of whether she's truly your mate. Vince's face went pale. That's not. The bond feels real, Tyrell finished. Of course it does. Alpha children are taught from birth how to create bonds, how to influence pack dynamics. Maybe her mother taught her. Maybe instinct kicked in. Either way, how can you trust anything she's told you? Phoebe watched Vince's expression shift, watched doubt creep in, watched the certainty in his gold eyes waver. The mate bond still hummed between them, but now it felt fragile, questioned. Vince, she whispered, please, you know me. You know what we have is real. Do I? His voice was hollow. You kept this secret, something this fundamental about who you are, and you never told me. Because I was afraid. Because I knew this would happen, that people would twist it, use it against me. Tears burned her eyes. I'm not trying to manipulate you. I'm not scheming for power. I'm just I'm just trying to survive in a world that's wanted me dead since the day I was born. A touching story, Miriam said. But the facts remain. She lied about her blood. She wormed her way into your chambers. She created a false bond. And now she's trying to guilt you into accepting her deception. Around them, the crowd murmured agreement. Even wolves who'd seemed sympathetic now looked suspicious, their expressions hardening. I think, Tyrell said slowly, that the appropriate response here is clear. The engagement to my daughter can still proceed. This unfortunate incident can be forgotten, and the Omega, or half Alpha, or whatever she is, can be returned to her proper place. No. Vince's voice cracked like a whip. You don't dictate what happens to my mate. Your mate? Tyrell's eyebrows rose. Are you certain? Because from where I stand, it looks like you've been played for a fool. Vince turned to Phoebe, and in his eyes she saw the thing she'd feared most. Uncertainty. I need time, he said finally, to think, to understand what's real and what's… He stopped, unable to finish. What's manipulation? Miriam supplied helpfully. Get away from me, Phoebe said, her voice breaking. All of you. You've made your point. I'm worthless. I'm a liar. I'm exactly what you've always said I am. She yanked off the pendant, the glow dying as it left her skin. Take it. Take everything. I don't want any of it. She shoved the necklace into Vince's hands and ran. Behind her, she heard Vince call her name, heard the pain in his voice, but she didn't stop, couldn't stop, because if she stayed, if she saw the doubt in his eyes solidify into rejection, it would destroy her. She ran through the ballroom, past shocked faces and whispered insults, through corridors that blurred through tears. She ran until she reached her tiny room, slammed the door, and collapsed. The beautiful dress pooled around her like a mockery. The careful hairstyle began to unravel, and the mate bond, that golden thread she'd trusted absolutely, now felt like a chain dragging her down to drown. This is what you get, a voice whispered in her mind, for dreaming above your station, for thinking you could be more than what you were born. Outside, the ball continued. Music played, wolves danced and politicked and celebrated, and Phoebe Cohen Omega, half Alpha, nobody cried alone in the darkness, her fairy tale shattered before it could even truly begin. Chapter 7. The Unraveling. Phoebe didn't sleep. She lay on her narrow cot, still wearing the ruined dress, watching moonlight crawl across the ceiling. The mate bond ached in her chest, a constant, throbbing pain, like something vital had been torn away but left just enough connection to hurt. She could feel Vince through it. His confusion, his pain, his doubt, and underneath it all, something darker. The curse, spreading again without her presence to fight it. Let it take him, the bitter voice in her head whispered. He doubted you. He believed them over you. But she couldn't. Even now. Even shattered, she couldn't stop loving him. Couldn't stop wanting to help. That's your problem, she thought. You love people who can't love you back. Dawn came gray and cold. Phoebe finally rose, peeling off the dress with mechanical movements. She folded it carefully. Stupid, really, to care about a dress after everything, and tucked it into the small trunk that held her few possessions. A knock at the door. She didn't answer. Phoebe? Jody's voice worried. Please, let me in. After a long moment, Phoebe opened the door. Jody took one look at her face and pulled her into a fierce hug. I heard, the other Omega whispered. Everyone heard. The whole pack is talking about nothing else. Let me guess, they're saying I'm a scheming liar who tried to trap a prince. Some are. Jody pulled back, her expression fierce. But not all. Some of us remember what it's like to hide parts of ourselves just to survive. Some of us think maybe you didn't have a choice. I didn't. Phoebe's voice cracked. My mother made me promise. She said if anyone knew, Tyrell would have me killed rather than acknowledge his half-brother's bastard. She said the only way to survive was to stay invisible. Then you did what you had to do. Jody squeezed her hands. And anyone with half a brain can see Miriam orchestrated last night to maximum damage. She wanted to destroy you publicly. She succeeded. Did she? Jody's eyes glittered. Because from what I heard, the prince didn't reject you. He asked for time to think. That's not the same as rejection. It's close enough. Phoebe pulled away, crossing to the tiny window. Outside, the pack house was waking up. Servants moved through the grounds, cleaning up after the ball. He doubted me, Jody. After everything, after the bond, after last night's full moon, he still believed I might be manipulating him. He's cursed and scared and being pressured by everyone around him, Jody said gently. That doesn't excuse it, but it explains it. The question is, what are you going to do now? What can I do? Run? Hide? Pretend none of this happened? Or fight? Jody's voice turned hard. Fight for what's yours. Fight for the truth. Don't let them win. Before Phoebe could respond, shouting erupted outside. She and Jody rushed to the window. In the courtyard below, Vince stood facing Alpha Tyrell, surrounded by a crowd of onlookers. Even from a distance, Phoebe could see something was wrong. Vince swayed slightly, his skin too pale, the gray veins visible even from this height. The curse, she breathed, cannot continue this farce. Tyrell's voice carried clearly. You're clearly unwell, Your Highness. Let our healers help you. Let my daughter. Your daughter is not my mate. Vince's voice was weak but determined. The bond is real. I feel it. Even now, even with distance. I feel Phoebe. You feel what you want to feel, Tyrell snapped. But the facts are clear. She lied to you. She manipulated you. And now the curse is worsening because you've tied yourself to someone unworthy. Careful, Alpha. Despite his obvious weakness, Vince's power flared enough to make Tyrell step back. You speak of my mate. I will tolerate only so much. Miriam appeared from the crowd, her expression perfectly crafted concern. Father's right, Your Highness. You're getting worse. Whatever you think you feel for the Omega, it's killing you. Please, let us help you break the false bond before it's too late. It's not false, Vince gritted out. But his conviction sounded hollow, questioned. Phoebe's hands clenched on the windowsill. She should go to him. Should defend herself. Defend what they had. But the memory of doubt in his eyes held her frozen. I can't watch this, she whispered. Then don't just watch, Jody urged. Do something. He's dying, Phoebe. Whatever anger you feel, do you really want him to die doubting? No. She didn't. Phoebe turned from the window and ran. She burst into the courtyard just as Vince collapsed. Warriors rushed forward to catch him. But Phoebe was faster. She dropped to her knees beside him, hands finding his face. The moment she touched him, the mate bond flared gold light erupting between them, pushing back the gray pallor of his skin. Vince's eyes opened, finding hers. And in them she saw agony and relief warring. Phoebe, he gasped. I'm here. The words came automatically, the same ones she'd used during his nightmares. You're not alone. The gray veins receded slightly. His breathing eased. Around them, the crowd murmured, some in awe, others in disgust. You see? Miriam's voice cut through. She's using her alpha blood to manipulate his wolf. This proves nothing except her deception. It proves the bond is real, said a new voice. Everyone turned. Rebecca stood at the edge of the crowd, her arms crossed, her expression thunderous. Beside her was an old woman. Phoebe didn't recognize Ancient, with white hair and eyes that seemed to see through flesh to soul. Who are you? Tyrell demanded. I am Antoinette Scott, the old woman said, her voice surprisingly strong for her age. Seer of the Western Territories. And I know a true mate bond when I see one. She approached slowly, her gaze fixed on Phoebe and Vince. That is Luna magic at work. Not manipulation, not deception, truth. With all due respect, Miriam said, her voice tight. How can we trust the word of a seer? They're notorious for seeing what others refuse to acknowledge? Antoinette's smile was sharp. Yes, we are. And what I see here is a prince dying because he's doubting the very thing that could save him. She turned to Vince. The curse was clear, was it not? Genuine compassion from someone who expected nothing, and you found it in an Omega who asked nothing, wanted nothing, gave everything. But now you doubt. And the doubt is killing you faster than the curse ever could. Vince stared at Phoebe, his gold eyes tortured. She lied about her blood. She survived, Antoinette corrected. There's a difference. Tell me, Prince, if she had announced herself as half-alpha, illegitimate daughter of a dead alpha's son, What would have happened to her? Silence. She would have been killed, Tyrell said finally, his voice flat. Immediately. To prevent any claim to pack leadership. Exactly. The seer's gaze swept the crowd. So this child, barely weaned, was taught to hide her blood or die. And you condemn her for choosing life? You call her deceptive for not volunteering for execution? But the mate bond, Miriam started, is real because her soul is worthy, not because her blood is pure. Antoinette knelt beside them, her old hands covering theirs where they still touched. Luna magic doesn't care about bloodlines. It cares about hearts. And this girl's heart is truer than anyone here has acknowledged. The pendant still in Vince's pocket began to glow again, visible even through the fabric, responding to Phoebe's touch, to the bond's resurgence. I didn't lie to trap you, Phoebe said quietly, her eyes never leaving Vince's. I lied to survive, and when I met you, when I felt the bond, I was terrified to tell you because I thought you'd react exactly as you did, with doubt, with suspicion, with the belief that I must be using you. I'm sorry, Vince whispered. I'm so sorry. I let them make me doubt what I felt. What I knew was true. You're cursed and dying and being pressured from every direction, Phoebe said, echoing Jody's words. I understand why you doubted. But Vince, I need you to decide. Right now. Either you believe in our bond, or you don't. Either you trust me, or you don't. Because I can't survive in this limbo. And neither can you. The crowd held its breath. Even Tyrell and Miriam had fallen silent, watching. Vince's hand came up to cup her cheek. I believe in you. In us. In the bond that saved me when nothing else could. His voice strengthened. And I'm done letting fear and politics dictate my heart. He stood, pulling Phoebe up with him. The gold light of the bond surrounded them, visible to everyone, undeniable. Phoebe Cohen is my true mate, Vince announced, his voice carrying across the courtyard. Half Alpha, half Omega. It doesn't matter. The moon has chosen her for me, and I choose her in return. Anyone who challenges this, challenges me directly. And I promise you, his power rolled out, making even the strongest alphas bow their heads. I am still dangerous enough to make good on that promise. This is madness, Tyrell roared. She's manipulating you, can't you see? What I see, Vince interrupted coldly, is an alpha so desperate to control me that he's orchestrated this entire disaster. Tell me, Tyrell, how did your daughter obtain sealed birth records? Records that should have been destroyed years ago? Miriam's face went pale. Unless, Vince continued, someone with alpha authority specifically preserved them, kept them as ammunition, perhaps even created them, if the originals were truly lost. His gold eyes narrowed. You've been planning this from the moment I arrived, haven't you? Creating leverage, manufacturing scandal, all to force me into an alliance with your daughter. That's absurd, Tyrell said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Antoinette spoke up. Because I can read pack records too. And I noticed that this sealed document only recently appeared in the archives. Days before the ball, in fact. Almost as if someone planted it there. The crowd's murmurs turned ugly, but this time, directed at Tyrell and Miriam. You forged evidence? An alpha from another pack demanded. Manipulated a Lycan Prince. We should punish them. Someone else shouted. Vince held up a hand for silence. The evidence may be forged, but the blood is real. Isn't it, Phoebe? You really are half alpha. She nodded slowly. My mother told me on her deathbed, but the records were destroyed. The old alpha made sure of it, to protect his son's reputation. I have no proof beyond her word. Your word is enough for me. Vince turned back to Tyrell. As for you, I want nothing more to do with Silvercrest Pack. The alliance is cancelled. You have 1 week to prepare a formal apology to my mate, or I will bring the full weight of Lycan authority down on your pack. Am I clear? Tyrell's face was purple with rage, but he bowed stiffly. Crystal, Your Highness. Good. Now get out of my sight. As the crowd dispersed, buzzing with gossip and scandal, Vince sagged. Phoebe caught him, feeling how much that display of power had cost him. We need to get you inside, she said urgently. Together, he agreed. Never apart again. I won't doubt you again, Phoebe. I swear it. I know. And somehow, she did. The bond sang between them, stronger now, tested and proven. Rebecca and Antoinette helped them back to the East Wing. Once in Vince's chambers, the old seer examined him with gentle hands. The curse is advancing faster, she said grimly. You have days. Maybe a week. The doubt damaged your connection to the bond. It's healing now. But time is running short. What do we do? Phoebe asked. Antoinette's eyes were kind but sad. You complete the bond, fully, a true mating, recognized by the moon. It's the only way to break the curse completely, love and acceptance so pure it cannot be questioned. Then we do it, Vince said immediately. It's not that simple. The seer's expression turned grave. A true mating requires a ceremony, witnessed, public, before the full moon rises again. That gives you 3 days. We can do it here, Phoebe said. No. Antoinette shook her head. It must be on neutral ground, before witnesses who will acknowledge the bond. After what happened last night, you need the support of other packs, not just Silvercrest. Vince cursed softly. That means traveling, negotiations, time we don't have. Then we make time, Phoebe said firmly. We've come this far. We're not giving up now. Rebecca smiled. I know someone. A neutral alpha, elderly, respected, no ties to Silvercrest politics. She owes me a favor. If we move fast, we could have the ceremony arranged by tomorrow night. Do it, Vince said. Whatever it takes. As plans were made around them, Phoebe leaned against Vince, feeling his heartbeat against her cheek, feeling the bond pulse with renewed strength. They'd survived doubt, survived betrayal, survived the world trying to tear them apart. Now they just had to survive 3 more days. Chapter 8. The Race Against Time. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of desperate preparation. Rebecca's contact was Araceli Ramsey, alpha of the Moonstone Pack, a small but respected territory 3 hours north. She was ancient, nearly 80, with silver hair and eyes that had seen decades of pack politics. More importantly, she was known for fairness and had no political ties to Tyrell or any of the packs vying for Lycan favor. She'll do it, Rebecca announced after a hurried phone call. But we need to be there by tomorrow evening. The full moon rises the night after, and the ceremony must be completed before moonrise to count. Vince nodded weakly from the bed. The gray veins had returned, spreading across his chest and neck despite Phoebe's constant presence. Every hour, he looked worse, skin too pale, movements sluggish, the gold in his eyes dimming. Can he even travel? Phoebe asked, fear threading through her voice. He has to, Antoinette said. She'd stayed to help, her seer's knowledge proving invaluable. The curse is feeding on his doubt and despair. Being here, surrounded by those who question the bond, only makes it stronger. Leaving Silvercrest might actually help. Then we leave today, Vince said, trying to sit up and failing. Phoebe caught him, her hands steadying his shoulders. Now, if possible, not now. Antoinette's voice was firm. You need rest. A few hours of sleep, at least. You'll collapse halfway there otherwise. I'll stay with him, Phoebe said immediately. We both will, Jody added from the doorway. She'd appointed herself Phoebe's guardian, refusing to leave her side. Someone needs to keep watch. Tyrell hasn't given up, I can feel it. She was right. That morning, Virgie had tried to enter Vince's chambers with medicine that smelled wrong, bitter and chemical. Only Jody's quick intervention had prevented it from reaching him. 2 beta warriors had accidentally blocked the hallway when Phoebe tried to fetch water, forcing her to take a longer route. Small harassments, easily dismissed, but adding up to something more sinister. Tyrell was making moves. I'll have supplies prepared, Rebecca said. Travel clothes for both of you, nothing fancy, just practical. And I'll arrange transportation that won't attract attention. Why are you helping us? Phoebe asked suddenly. You barely know us. You risk Tyrell's wrath by standing with us. Rebecca's expression softened. Because 40 years ago, I was the seamstress's daughter who fell in love with a beta warrior. Everyone said I wasn't good enough. Wasn't worthy. But he chose me anyway, And we had 30 beautiful years before he died. Her eyes glistened. I won't stand by and watch another love destroyed by people who think rank matters more than hearts. After they left to make preparations, Phoebe curled up beside Vince on the bed, her hand pressed to his chest, feeling his labored heartbeat through the bond. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too. His arm wrapped around her, weak but determined. But Phoebe, even if the worst happens, even if we don't make it in time, I need you to know something. Don't talk like that. Listen. He turned her face toward his gold eyes intense despite their dimming. These past days with you have been the happiest of my life. You gave me hope when I'd given up. You showed me kindness when I deserved none. And you loved me not because I'm a prince, not for power or status, but just me. The man under the curse, the person having nightmares, just me. Tears tracked down her cheeks. You're the first person who ever saw me as more than my rank, who looked at an Omega and saw someone worth protecting, worth training, worth loving, worth everything, he corrected, wiping her tears with his thumb. And whatever happens tomorrow, that's real. Our bond is real. Don't let anyone make you doubt that again. They fell asleep tangled together, the mate bond humming between them fragile but unbroken, a golden thread holding them both to life. Phoebe woke to shouting. She sat up quickly, disoriented. Vince still slept beside her, exhaustion keeping him under. But outside the chamber, voices rose in argument. She slipped from the bed and cracked open the door. Tyrell stood in the corridor with 6 warriors, all armed. Facing them were Jody, Rebecca, and surprisingly 3 other Omegas from the servant quarters. They positioned themselves in front of Vince's door, blocking access. Stand aside, Tyrell commanded. I have business with the prince. The prince is resting, Jody said, her voice steady despite her obvious fear. He gave orders not to be disturbed. I don't take orders from Omegas, Tyrell snarled. He gestured to the warriors. Remove them. The warriors hesitated. Attacking Omega's servants under their own roof was technically legal but politically messy. It showed weakness, desperation. You really want to assault 4 unarmed women? Rebecca asked, her voice dripping with scorn. In your own pack house? With witnesses? That will look wonderful when word spreads to the other alphas. They're servants, one warrior muttered. Who cares what happens to? I care. Everyone turned. Stuart Fry stood at the end of the corridor. A high-ranking beta warrior, respected and feared. Behind him were 5 more warriors, their postures making it clear whose side they were on. Stuart? Tyrell's voice held shock. What are you doing? Keeping the peace, Stuart said calmly. The prince gave clear orders. No one disturbs him while he rests. You may be alpha, but in matters concerning the Lycan Prince, his word supersedes yours. Tyrell's face purpled. You dare defy me? I dare uphold honor. Stuart's gaze was steady. What you're doing here, trying to access a weakened prince, possibly to harm or coerce him, that's not honorable. That's treachery. Treachery? Tyrell laughed, but it sounded hollow. I'm trying to save him from a manipulative Omega who has shown more courage and honor than half the alphas I know. Stuart interrupted. I was at the training grounds. I saw the prince teaching her to defend herself. I saw genuine affection between them, not manipulation. And I saw you and your daughter orchestrating last night's disaster. His expression hardened. I won't be part of whatever you're planning now. Other warriors shifted, uncertain. The pack was fracturing, some loyal to Tyrell, others questioning, a few openly siding with Stuart. This isn't over, Tyrell said finally, his voice low and dangerous. When the prince dies from this cursed bond, you'll all see I was right. He left, his loyal warriors following. The tension in the corridor eased slightly. Stuart approached the door, nodding respectfully to Jody and the others. Is he really that bad? Worse, Phoebe said, opening the door fully. Thank you for standing up for us. My mate was an Omega, Stuart said quietly. Died 20 years ago. Everyone said I should have chosen a beta, someone appropriate. But she was my world. His eyes glistened. Don't let them take that from you. He stationed 2 of his warriors outside the door protection, not imprisonment, and left. Jody and Rebecca slipped inside. We need to leave. Rebecca said urgently. Now. Tyrell's desperate enough to try something more extreme. Vince needs rest. He needs to survive. Rebecca crossed to the bed, gently shaking Vince awake. Your Highness. We have to go. Tyrell just tried to force entry. Next time he might succeed. Vince struggled to consciousness, his movements slow. How long did I sleep? 3 hours. Not enough, but it'll have to do. Rebecca produced travel clothes sturdy, nondescript, designed to help them blend in. Change quickly. The car is waiting in the south courtyard. As they dressed, Antoinette appeared with a small vial of amber liquid. Drink this, Your Highness. It won't cure you, but it'll give you strength for the journey. Vince drank without question. Almost immediately, color returned to his cheeks, and his movements steadied. What is it? Old magic. It'll last maybe 6 hours, then you'll crash hard, but it should get you to Moonstone territory. She pressed a second vial into Phoebe's hand. If he collapses before we arrive, give him this. But only in dire emergency, it's the last I have. They moved quickly through the pack house, taking servants' corridors to avoid attention. Stuart's warriors created a diversion near the main entrance, drawing Tyrell's loyalists away from the south courtyard. A nondescript SUV waited, engine running. Behind the wheel sat Angelo Zamora, one of the pack's drivers, a quiet beta who'd never said more than 2 words to Phoebe before. Figured you might need a ride, he said simply. My daughter's Omega. She deserves to see someone like her succeed. They piled in Vince and Phoebe in the back, Jody and Rebecca in the middle seats, Antoinette up front. As they pulled away from Silvercrest Packhouse, Phoebe looked back through the rear window. Miriam stood on the front steps, watching them go. Even from a distance, her smile was visible, sharp and knowing and full of malicious promise. She's planning something, Phoebe said. Of course she is, Antoinette replied. But whatever it is, we'll deal with it when it comes. Right now, focus on the ceremony. The drive took 4 hours instead of 3. They had to take back roads to avoid pack checkpoints where Tyrell's influence reached. Vince deteriorated as Antoinette's potion wore off, the gray veins spreading, his breathing becoming labored. Phoebe held him through it, pouring everything she had into the bond, love, hope, determination. Every time his eyes closed too long, she spoke to him, sang half-remembered lullabies her mother had taught her, told him stories about nothing, just to keep him conscious. Stay with me, she whispered, as they crossed into Moonstone territory. We're almost there, just hold on a little longer. His hand squeezed hers weakly. Always, hold on. For you. Always. Moonstone Pack's central compound was smaller than Silvercrest's, more rustic, built into the side of a mountain with stone and timber. As they pulled up, Alpha Araceli herself emerged to greet them. She was tiny, barely 5 feet tall, but power radiated from her like heat from a forge. Her silver hair hung in a long braid, and her eyes were the pale blue of winter sky. Prince Vince, she said, her voice surprisingly strong. You look terrible. Get him inside. 2 Moonstone warriors helped Vince from the car. He could barely walk now, even with support. They carried him more than led him to a guest room where healers waited. The ceremony is prepared for tomorrow night, Araceli said to Phoebe. But I'll be honest, I'm not sure he'll make it that long. He will. Phoebe's voice was steel. He has to. Araceli studied her for a long moment. You love him, truly, with everything I am. Good. The old Alpha smiled. Then maybe we have a chance after all. Come, let me explain what the ceremony requires. They gathered in Araceli's study, a cozy room lined with books and artifacts. The Alpha spread a map across her desk, marking locations. The mating ceremony must take place at a sacred site, she explained. There's one here. On my territory, an ancient altar where the first wolves pledged to the moon. You'll stand there at sunset, before witnesses, and declare your bond. That's it? Jody asked. Just declarations? The declarations are the easy part. Araceli's expression turned grave. The hard part is what comes after. You must each offer something precious, something that proves your love is genuine, not based on convenience or advantage. And then... She hesitated. Then you must both drink from the moon's cup. What's the moon's cup? Phoebe asked. An ancient chalice, filled with water blessed by Luna magic. It reveals truth if your bond is real. The water will taste sweet and seal your mating, if it's false. She didn't finish, but her meaning was clear. And if Vince is too weak to drink, Rebecca asked quietly, then the curse wins. Araceli's pale eyes found Phoebe's. Everything depends on him surviving until sunset tomorrow, and on your bond being strong enough to withstand Luna's judgment. It will be, Phoebe said, but inside, fear gnawed at her. Vince was dying. They were running out of time, and somewhere behind them, Miriam and Tyrell were plotting. Outside, the sun was setting. Tomorrow's sunset would determine everything. Phoebe returned to Vince's room, where he lay pale and still. She climbed onto the bed beside him, pressing her body against his, willing her strength into him through the bond. One more day, she whispered. Just give me one more day, then we'll be bound forever, and nothing can separate us. His hand found hers in the darkness, squeezed once weak but deliberate, and together, they faced the longest night of their lives. Chapter 9. The Ceremony. Dawn broke gray and cold, and Vince didn't wake. Phoebe shook him gently at first, then harder, panic rising in her throat. His chest still rose and fell, but barely. The gray veins had spread to his face now, webbing across his cheeks like cracks in porcelain. His skin was cold to the touch, his heartbeat so faint she could barely feel it through the bond. No, she whispered. No, 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 not now. We're so close. She pressed her hand to his chest, pouring everything into the bond, love, desperation, fury at the unfairness of it all. The gold light flickered weakly, pushing back the gray for just a moment, before fading again. Antoinette rushed in, summoned by Phoebe's cry of distress. She examined Vince with quick, efficient movements, her expression growing grimmer. The curse is making its final push, she said quietly. It knows the ceremony is tonight. It's trying to kill him before he can complete the bond. What do I do? Phoebe's voice cracked. There has to be something. The second vial. Give it to him now. Phoebe fumbled for the amber liquid Antoinette had given her, uncorking it with shaking hands. She lifted Vince's head, coaxing his lips apart, and slowly dripped the potion into his mouth. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then Vince convulsed, his back arching, a strangled gasp escaping his throat. The gray veins pulsed, fighting the potion, and for several heartbeats Phoebe thought it might kill him rather than save him. Then color flooded back into his face. His eyes opened, still dimmed, still suffering, but conscious. Phoebe, he rasped. I'm here. She cradled his face in her hands. How do you feel? Like death warmed over. His attempt at a smile was more grimace, but alive. For now. That potion will keep him functional until sunset, Antoinette said. But the moment the sun goes down, if the ceremony isn't complete, he'll die. There's no more magic, no more delays. This is it. Vince struggled to sit up. Then we make sure we're ready. The day passed in agonizing slowness. Phoebe helped Vince bathe and dress in the ceremonial clothes Araceli had provided, simple white linen that symbolized purity of intent. Her own dress was similar, flowing and elegant without ostentation. Rebecca braided Phoebe's hair with flowers from Moonstone's gardens, small white blooms that smelled of honey and hope. Jody stayed close, a steady presence, occasionally squeezing Phoebe's hand when the fear became too much. At noon, Araceli entered with news that drained the blood from Phoebe's face. Alpha Tyrell has arrived, she said, with his daughter and 20 warriors. He's demanding to speak with Prince Vince before the ceremony. Absolutely not, Vince said immediately. He was sitting by the window conserving strength. He has no authority here. Technically. Araceli's expression was apologetic. He's claiming that, as the host pack, where your relationship began, he has the right to witness and approve the mating. It's an old law, rarely invoked, but legally sound. He's here to stop it, Phoebe said flatly. Whatever scheme Miriam planned, they're going to execute it today. Then we don't give them the chance. Vince stood, swaying slightly before steadying himself. We move the ceremony up. Do it now, before sunset. It has to be sunset, Antoinette said gently. Luna magic is strongest at the transition between day and night. Any other time, and the moon's cup won't work. The curse won't break. Then we stall Tyrell until sunset, Rebecca suggested. Keep him talking, keep him distracted. Let me handle Tyrell, Araceli said. Her smile was sharp. I've been dealing with ambitious alphas for 60 years. I can keep him occupied for a few hours. She left, and Phoebe found herself pacing. Something was wrong. She could feel it through the bond, not from Vince, but from the world around them. A sense of impending disaster. What could they possibly do? She wondered aloud. The ceremony is on neutral ground. Araceli supports us. Even if Tyrell objects, he can't stop it. Unless he challenges me directly, Vince said quietly. Force is a dominance fight. If I'm killed before the ceremony, the bond dies with me. You can barely stand, Jody protested. You can't fight anyone right now. I know. Vince's jaw clenched. Which is exactly why he'll do it. He knows I'm vulnerable. Knows this is his last chance. The afternoon dragged toward evening. Through the window, Phoebe watched the sun crawl across the sky, each moment both too fast and too slow. At 4 o'clock, a knock at the door. Stuart Fry entered, his expression grim. Prince Vince. You need to hear this. He glanced at Phoebe. Both of you. I've learned what Miriam's planning. They gathered close as Stuart spoke quietly. One of Tyrell's warriors got drunk in the Moonstone Tavern. Started bragging. Apparently Miriam has convinced several alphas from other packs that Miss Cohen is dangerous, that she's using dark magic to manipulate you. They're coming here tonight. Not to witness the ceremony, but to demand a trial. A trial? Phoebe's blood ran cold. For what? Witchcraft. Manipulation of a Lycan Prince. Conspiracy to corrupt pack hierarchy. Stuart's voice was heavy. It's all false, obviously. But if enough alphas demand it, even Araceli will have to honor the request. And during a trial, the ceremony can't proceed. They'll stall until I die, Vince said. Then claim the curse killed me because the bond was false. Exactly. Stuart looked miserable. I'm sorry. I tried to warn them off, but how long do we have? Vince interrupted. The other alphas will arrive around sunset. They're timing it deliberately. Vince and Phoebe exchanged looks. The same thought occurred to both of them simultaneously. We start early, Phoebe said. But the magic, Antoinette started. We start early anyway, Vince said firmly. We say our vows, make our declarations, everything except drinking from the cup. Then, the moment sunset hits, we complete it. Even if the alphas arrive, we'll be mid-ceremony. Pack law says they can't interrupt sacred rites. Araceli, who'd returned during the explanation, nodded slowly. It's risky. If the timing is off by even a minute, the cup won't work. But it might be our only option. Then we do it. Vince stood, offering his hand to Phoebe. Let's get married. The sacred site was a clearing at the mountain's peak, accessible only by a winding path through ancient forest. At its center stood an altar of white stone, weathered by centuries, covered in carvings of wolves and moons and stars. The moon's cup sat upon it, a simple silver chalice filled with water that seemed to glow from within. Witnesses gathered in a semicircle: Araceli's pack members, Stuart and his loyal warriors, Jody and Rebecca, Antoinette, and Angelo the driver. Small numbers, but genuine support. Conspicuously absent were Tyrell and Miriam, still being entertained by Araceli's beta in the main compound. They'd realize the deception soon, but by then it would be too late. The sun hung low, perhaps 20 minutes from the horizon. They had to time this perfectly. Araceli stood before the altar, her role as neutral alpha making her the ceremony's officiant. We gather to witness the mating of Prince Vince of the Lycan line and Phoebe Cohen of Silvercrest Pack. This is a bond recognized by the moon herself, sealed by Luna magic, and challenged by none present. Challenged by none present, the witnesses echoed. Vince and Phoebe faced each other, hands joined. Up close, she could see how much the day had cost him, the tremors he was suppressing, the pain behind his eyes. But his grip on her hands was steady, his gaze unwavering. The ceremony requires 3 elements, Araceli continued. Declaration of intent, offering of sacrifice, and drinking from the moon's cup. Prince Vince, speak your intent. Vince's voice rang clear despite his weakness. I choose Phoebe Cohen as my mate, my equal, my partner in all things. I see not her rank but her soul. I honor not her blood but her heart. and I vow to stand beside her against all who would separate us, until death takes me or the moon calls us home. Phoebe Cohen, speak your intent. Phoebe's throat was tight, but she forced the words out. I choose Vince as my mate, my equal, my partner in all things. I see not his title, but his spirit. I honor not his power, but his kindness. And I vow to stand beside him against all who would separate us, until death takes me or the moon calls us home. The bond flared between them, gold light visible even in the fading daylight. Now comes the sacrifice, Araceli said. Each must offer something precious, something that proves your love transcends personal gain. Vince reached into his pocket and produced a small object. At first, Phoebe thought it was a coin. Then she recognized it, the royal seal, the stamp that proved his identity as Lycan Prince. I offer my title, Vince said quietly. The thing I was born to, raised for, defined by. If keeping Phoebe means giving up the throne, I choose her. If loving her means exile, I accept it. I am hers before I am anyone's prince. Gasps from the witnesses. To offer one's title was nearly unheard of. It meant he'd walk away from everything if forced to choose. Phoebe Cohen, Araceli said gently. What do you offer? Phoebe had agonized over this. What did she have that was precious? She owned almost nothing. Came from nothing. Then it hit her. She reached up and unclasped the small locket she wore, the only thing of her mother's she'd kept. Inside was a tiny painted portrait, the last image of Harriet's face. I offer my past, she said, her voice breaking. The only connection I have to my mother, the only proof I existed before this moment. If loving Vince means letting go of who I was, the invisible Omega, the hidden daughter, the survivor who stayed small to stay safe, I choose him. I choose a future over history. I choose us over the girl I used to be. Tears tracked down her cheeks as she placed the locket on the altar beside Vince's seal. The two objects sat together, proof that both were willing to sacrifice everything. The bond blazed brighter. 10 minutes to sunset, Antoinette called, watching the sky anxiously. Then we wait, Araceli said. The cup can only be drunk at the exact moment of sunset. We hold. Those 10 minutes stretched into eternity. Vince swayed on his feet, and Phoebe gripped his hands tighter, holding him up through sheer will. The gray veins were spreading again, the potion's power fading. Almost there, she whispered. Hold on, please hold on. 5 minutes, 3, 2, then shouting from the path below, Tyrell's voice, roaring in fury. They'd discovered the deception. 1 minute, Antoinette said. They won't make it in time. But then Miriam appeared at the clearing's edge, her face twisted with rage and triumph. Stop this ceremony. You have no authority here, Araceli said coldly. I have proof. Miriam held up a document different from the birth records, something new. Proof that Phoebe Cohen's mother practiced dark magic, that she was exiled from her birth pack for witchcraft, that blood runs in her daughter. Lies, Phoebe said, but doubt flickered in some witnesses' eyes. Is it? Miriam's smile was vicious. Then explain why your mother could speak to spirits, why she knew things before they happened, why she... Because she was a seer. Antoinette's voice cracked like thunder. Like me. It's not witchcraft. You ignorant child, it's Luna's gift, and for you to twist it into something dark shows exactly how desperate you are. 30 seconds, someone called. Tyrell burst into the clearing with his warriors. I challenge this union. I demand. Sunset. Araceli interrupted. The cup. Now. Phoebe grabbed the chalice, brought it to Vince's lips. His hands covered hers, steadying the cup. Together, he whispered. They drank simultaneously, each taking half. The water was sweet. Impossibly sweet. Like honey and starlight, and every good thing that had ever existed. It filled Phoebe with warmth, with light, with a certainty so profound it made everything else fall away. The bond exploded between them, gold light, erupting so bright it blinded everyone present. Phoebe felt it snap into place, felt the connection deepen from thread to chain to something unbreakable and eternal, felt the curse shatter. Vince gasped, his back arching. The gray veins retreated, dissolving like smoke in wind. Color flooded back into his skin. His eyes blazed pure gold, brighter than before. more alive. And when he looked at Phoebe, she saw everything. Love, joy, relief, forever. It worked, he breathed. The curse is gone. I can feel it, it's gone. They kissed as the gold light enveloped them, as witnesses cheered, as even Tyrell stood speechless. When they finally broke apart, Vince turned to the gathered crowd. His voice rang with power, not curse weakened, not diminished, but full Lycan strength. This is my mate, my wife, my Luna. Chosen by the moon, proven by the cup, witnessed by all of you. His gold eyes found Tyrell. Any who challenge her challenge me. Any who threaten her declare war on the Lycan throne. Am I understood? Silence. Even Tyrell couldn't argue with Luna magic made manifest. I said, am I understood? Yes, your highness, came the scattered replies. Even Miriam bowed her head, defeated. Araceli smiled. Then by the power vested in me by pack law and Luna's grace, I declare you mated. May your bond be eternal, your love unbreakable, and your enemies terrified. Laughter rippled through the witnesses. Vince pulled Phoebe close, and she felt it, the mate bond, complete and perfect, humming between them like a song. We did it, she whispered. You did it, he corrected. You saved me. In every way a person can be saved. As the last light faded, and stars began to appear, as witnesses celebrated and even Tyrell's warriors offered grudging congratulations, Phoebe looked up at the moon rising full and silver above them, and she swore she saw it pulse once, deliberate like a wink from Luna herself. Well done, the night seemed to whisper. Well done, little Omega who became so much more. Chapter 10. The Luna's Reign. 3 months later. Winter had settled over the territories like a promise kept. Phoebe stood at the window of their chambers in the Lycan Palace, not Silvercrest's pack house, but Vince's true home in the heart of Lycan territory. The view stretched for miles. Snow-covered forests, mountains that touched the sky, and in the distance, the glittering lights of pack settlements that now answered to her as much as to Vince. Luna. They called her Luna now. It still felt strange on her tongue. That title. But the pendant around her neck, Vince's mother's necklace, glowed steady and true, reminding her that Luna magic didn't lie. She was worthy. She'd always been worthy. Deep thoughts? Vince's arms wrapped around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. The gray veins were gone completely, erased as if they'd never existed. His strength had returned tenfold. The curses breaking, releasing power he'd forgotten he possessed. Just thinking about how much has changed, Phoebe said, leaning into him. 3 months ago, I was scrubbing floors and trying to stay invisible, and now you're the most visible wolf in 3 territories. His smile was warm against her neck. How does it feel? Terrifying. Exhilarating. Right. She turned in his arms. But I couldn't have done it without help. That was an understatement. The first month after the ceremony had been chaos. Tyrell had challenged the mating's legitimacy, of course. Called for a formal inquiry, demanded the Lycan Council review the case. But the evidence was undeniable. The Moon's Cup had accepted them. Luna magic had blessed their union. And dozens of witnesses had seen the curse break the moment their bond completed. The council had ruled in their favor unanimously. More than that, they'd censured Tyrell for his attempts at manipulation, his forgery of records, and his assault on a mated Luna. The punishment was severe. Silvercrest Pack's territory was reduced by 1/3, redistributed to neighboring packs. Tyrell's influence on the council was stripped, and Miriam was forbidden from attending any formal pack gatherings for 5 years. He deserved worse, Vince had said at the time. Maybe, Phoebe had replied. But mercy shows strength. And I'd rather be known for compassion than cruelty. It was that statement repeated at the council hearing that had won over the last holdouts. An Omega-turned Luna who chose mercy over vengeance. It challenged every assumption about what strength meant. Not everyone accepted her, of course. Some alphas still muttered about propriety and tradition. Some betas refused to bow to someone born beneath them. But slowly, grudgingly, the territories were adapting. And those who'd helped them? They'd been rewarded. Rebecca now served as the royal seamstress. Her designs sought after across all territories. She'd hired a dozen assistants and expanded her workshop, finally receiving recognition for her artistry. She'd visited just last week, bringing fabric samples and stories that made them laugh until their sides hurt. Jody had accepted Phoebe's offer to become her personal attendant, not as a servant, but as a trusted companion and friend. She had rooms in the palace, a salary that let her send money to her family, and most importantly, respect. Other Omegas looked to her as proof that their lives could change. Stuart Fry had been promoted to captain of the Lycan Guard, his loyalty during the crisis earning him Vince's complete trust. He ran the warriors with firm fairness, and his presence kept ambitious wolves from attempting anything foolish. Antoinette had become the royal seer, advising on matters both magical and political. Her wisdom had proven invaluable, especially during the difficult early days when every decision was scrutinized. Even Angelo the driver had been rewarded. He now managed the palace's transportation fleet and had been granted a small territory of his own to govern. His Omega daughter visited often, her eyes full of hope that Phoebe recognized from her own reflection months ago. "The council meeting is in an hour," Vince reminded her gently. "Are you ready?" Phoebe nodded. Today was important, the first major policy change she was proposing as Luna. She'd spent weeks preparing, knowing resistance would be fierce. They dressed in formal attire, Vince in the black and silver of Lycan royalty, Phoebe in a gown of deep green that complemented the pendant's glow. Her hair was braided in the style Jody had perfected, woven with small silver threads that caught the light. She looked every inch a Luna, but more importantly, she felt like one. The council chamber was a circular room carved from black stone, with 12 seats for the territorial alphas and a raised dais for the Lycan throne. Vince and Phoebe entered together, and all 12 alphas rose, some immediately, others after a grudging pause. Tyrell's seat was empty. He'd been replaced by Harold Harrell, a younger alpha with more progressive views. The change had shifted the council's dynamics significantly. "Let us begin," Vince said, taking his seat. Phoebe stood beside him, not behind, not below, but beside, equal. "Luna, Phoebe has a proposal." She stepped forward, meeting the eyes of alphas who'd once considered her beneath notice. "I propose a restructuring of how we classify pack members. Currently we use Alpha, Beta, Omega, a hierarchy based solely on birth. I propose we add a fourth category, merit." Murmurs rippled through the council. Wolves of any birth rank could apply for merit status by demonstrating exceptional skill, wisdom, or service to their pack, Phoebe continued. Those who achieve it would be granted the same rights and respect as alphas, regardless of their original designation. "We would judge wolves by their actions and character, not their bloodline." "Ridiculous," snapped one of the older alphas, Clifton Hanna, traditional to his core. "The hierarchy exists for a reason. Alphas lead because we're born stronger." "Are you?" Phoebe asked calmly. "Because I've met Omegas with more courage than some alphas. Betas with more wisdom than many leaders. Strength comes in many forms. We're limiting ourselves by ignoring talent simply because it's born in the wrong rank." "She's right," Harold spoke up. "How many potentially brilliant wolves have we wasted in servant positions because they were Omega? How much strength have we overlooked? It would destabilize everything." Another alpha protested. "Good," Vince said quietly. Power thrummed through his voice. "Our current system breeds resentment and wastes potential. Luna, Phoebe's proposal doesn't eliminate the hierarchy, it adds another path. Alphas born to power keep their positions, but those born without it can earn respect through merit. What's wrong with that?" Silence. Several alphas shifted uncomfortably. "I was born Omega," Phoebe said softly. "According to tradition, I should be invisible, worthless. But I saved a prince's life. I broke a curse. I stand before you as Luna, blessed by the moon herself. If that doesn't prove that birth rank isn't destiny, what does?" The vote was close, 7-5 in favor. Not unanimous, but enough. The merit system would be implemented across all territories within the year. As they left the council chamber, Vince pulled Phoebe into an alcove and kissed her deeply. "You're changing the world," he murmured against her lips. "We're changing the world," she corrected. Together. That evening, they hosted a dinner for their closest allies. The palace's great hall blazed with candlelight and warmth, laughter echoing off ancient stone walls. Rebecca regaled them with stories of demanding clients. Jody described her recent trip to visit her family, how her mother had cried seeing her daughter dressed in fine clothes and treated with respect. Stuart demonstrated a new combat technique he was teaching the guards, much to everyone's amusement when he accidentally knocked over a chair. Antoinette sat in the place of honor beside Vince, her old eyes twinkling. "You know," she said during a lull in conversation, "when I saw you two that first day at the ceremony, I had a vision." "Of what?" Phoebe asked. "The future. Decades from now. You two, silver-haired and still besotted with each other, surrounded by children and grandchildren, and the territories at peace, truly at peace for the first time in centuries." She smiled. "It's a good future, worth fighting for." "We intend to," Vince said, squeezing Phoebe's hand. Later, after the guests had departed and the palace had quieted, Vince and Phoebe returned to their chambers. They stood together at the window, watching snow fall in the moonlight. "Do you ever regret it?" Vince asked suddenly. "Choosing this life? You could have walked away at any point. Could have chosen safety over me." Phoebe turned to face him, cupping his jaw with her hand. "I've never regretted a single moment. Yes, it's been hard. Yes, some wolves still hate me. Yes, I'm terrified most of the time that I'll make a mistake and prove them right." She smiled. "But I'm doing it beside you. And that makes everything worth it." "I love you," he said simply. "My mate, my Luna, my everything." "I love you too," she whispered. "My prince, my partner, my home." They kissed as the moon rose full and silver outside their window, the same moon that had witnessed their ceremony, the same moon that had blessed their impossible bond. And somewhere in the territories, a young Omega girl looked up at that same moon and dared to hope. Hope that she could be more than her rank. Hope that kindness was strength. Hope that someone like her, invisible, overlooked, considered worthless, might one day matter. Because Luna Phoebe had proven it was possible. Epilogue. 5 years later. The gardens of the Lycan Palace had become famous throughout the territories. Not for their beauty, though they were beautiful, but for what they represented. Any wolf, regardless of rank, could request an audience with Luna Phoebe in the gardens. No appointments necessary, no formality required, just walk in and speak. It was unprecedented. It was controversial. It was quintessentially Phoebe. She sat there now, her hand resting on her swollen belly, 6 months pregnant with their first child, listening to a beta warrior describe a territorial dispute. Beside her, Vince handled correspondence but listened with half an ear, ready to intervene if needed. The merit system had transformed the territories. Dozens of wolves had applied and earned the designation, proving themselves through service, innovation, and leadership. 2 former Omegas now sat on the council, appointed by their packs based on their achievements rather than their birth. Change was slow, but it was happening. Terrell had died the previous winter peacefully, in his sleep. His son now led Silvercrest, a quieter wolf with less ambition and more wisdom. He'd visited the palace to formally apologize for his father's actions, an apology Phoebe had accepted with grace. Miriam had married a distant alpha, moved to the far territories, and from all reports was miserable. Phoebe felt no satisfaction in that, just a vague sadness that Miriam had never learned that grasping for power brought less happiness than accepting genuine connection. "Luna," the beta warrior was finishing his explanation. "So you see, we need guidance. Split the territory equally," Phoebe said after a moment's thought. "Both packs have legitimate claims. Make them work together to govern it, force cooperation instead of competition. If they can't share, neither deserves it." The warrior bowed. "Wise counsel, Luna, thank you." As he left, Jody appeared with tea and worried eyes. "You've been out here for 3 hours. The baby is fine," Phoebe assured her. "Strong kick every few minutes to remind me she's there." "She?" Vince looked up, smiling. "You're certain?" "Antoinette confirmed it yesterday." "A girl." Phoebe's hand moved protectively over her belly. "A daughter who'll grow up in a world where her worth isn't determined by her rank, where she can be anything. She'll be extraordinary," Vince said softly. "Because she's yours." "Ours," Phoebe corrected, as she always did. That evening, as they prepared for bed, Phoebe caught her reflection in the mirror. The Omega girl who'd once scrubbed floors was gone, replaced by a Luna who'd changed the world. But when she looked closely, she could still see traces of that girl in her eyes, in her determination, in her refusal to forget where she came from. "What are you thinking?" Vince asked, emerging from the washroom. That I'm grateful, Phoebe said. For everything, the curse, the ball, even Miriam's schemes. Because it all led here, to us, to this life. To a daughter who'll never have to hide who she is. Vince wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands joining hers on her belly. You know what I'm grateful for? What? That night, the first nightmare. When you could have walked away, done your job and left, but instead you stayed. You touched my hand and spoke to me like I was worth saving. His voice roughened with emotion. Everything good in my life traces back to that moment of compassion, from someone who owed me nothing. I owed you everything, Phoebe whispered. You saw me when I was invisible. You made me believe I could be more. You always were more. I just helped you see it. They stood together in the moonlight, feeling their daughter move between them, feeling the mate bond pulse with steady, unbreakable strength. Outside, the territories slept territories, slowly learning that rank was given, but worth was earned. That power without compassion was cruelty. That the smallest voice sometimes carried the greatest wisdom. And at the heart of it all was a Luna-born Omega, who dared to be kind to a dying prince, and in doing so had saved more than just one life. She'd saved an entire world. Dear viewers, as we come to the end of Phoebe and Vince's journey, I leave you with this question. If you had to choose between a safe, invisible life, or a dangerous fight to be seen, which would you choose? And what does that say about the courage we carry inside? If this story moved you, please leave a like on this video. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life. Thank you for being here. Until next time.